Hello, everybody.
Evening, everybody. I've got Ux and Kendall with me. But start
Good
off,
evening.
I'm going to open the chat room out. I won't be on to that for long tonight. It's going to be a quick one, 2 hours most.
At the most.
And we're going to scut across this Nice Treaty come... Oh shit, I forgot the name of it already.
Ratification of.
I've forgot the name of it already.
Lisbon?
Well,
Treaty.
I think it's three treaties, isn't it? It's the Nice Treaty, it's the Maastricht Treaty, and the Lisbon Treaty that go all together into wrapping us into this European crap. And on November the 1st, the whole of it is ratified. In other words, it comes into force. So from November the 1st, there are certain things that's going to happen within Britain that actually, if you start looking into the complications that are going to arise from it, we are moving from common law, or supposedly common law, into corpus juris, which is the European law. And under corpus juris, we all come under this realm where we're guilty until we prove otherwise, the Napoleonic law thing. And at the moment, under common law, you're innocent until someone proves you guilty. Under the new version of this law, the burden of proof to prove yourself innocent is upon yourself, not the other way around, which it is under the present system. So that's, and I mean, on the media at the moment, they're more interested in 600-watt hoovers and fucking excuse my French, hair dryers, and they're not telling us anything.
Isn't it 1,300 watt hoovers? Is that the maximum?
I don't know. I don't know. You know,
it's twice as powerful, Kendo. More than.
Well, I've got a Bosch 2000-watt all-rounder, and you only need it on 50%, and it sucks like a bitch.
Like a lot of MPs.
What I think, right, the craziest thing about this November 1st thing is that it's like there's been no publicity about it at all. Well, there's not been much, you know. It's like really flown under the radar. The implications of it are potentially, you know, massive, and massive. I mean, massive.
Absolutely massive, yeah. Because we, excuse me, under this new jurisdiction, we'll end up with Europol on our streets, and they'll be imposing European law upon us. And what does anybody here know about European law? I've been trying to find stuff out about European law.
Nothing really.
And you've got to start digging into the treaty, and that this ratification doesn't just include the law. There's a whole list of stuff that happens with ratification.
Well, there's going to be a whole group of broad subjects that now fall under European control, aren't there?
Yeah.
And they're going to have the authority to change laws, and we basically got to just say, yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And this list of stuff it covers is ridiculous. I mean, immigration was one. Culture, that's quite a broad subject to be covered by Europe, don't you think? Culture, in general. I can't remember the others. There's loads of them.
Administrative corporation, asylum, border controls.
Oh, you got the list up there, yeah? Yes, so yeah, immigration, asylum, right, yeah, and immigration.
Citizens Initiative regulations, civil protection, Committee of the Regions, Common Defence Policy, crime prevention initiatives, crime judicial cooperation, criminal law, culture, diplomatic judicial cooperation.
We're only on D at the moment as well.
emergency international aid, energy, EU budget, Eurojust, European Central Bank, European Court of Justice, Europol, Eurozone external representation, Foreign Affairs High Representation election, freedom of movement of workers, freedom to establish a business, freedom, security, justice, cooperation and evaluation policy, funding the common foreign and security policy, general economic interest services, humanitarian aid, immigration, intellectual property, organisation of the councils of the EU, police cooperation, and I'll leave that. Something out back of that police cooperation then, but presidents of the European Council election, response to natural disaster and terrorism, rules concerning the agreements Amendments Agency, self-employment rights, social security unanimity, space, sport, structural and cohesion funds, tourism, transport, withdrawal of a member state.
Was that it? We've come to the end of the list now.
Yeah, that's the end of the list. Sorry.
Fuck for that. Jesus, man, it's a lot of stuff. I mean, there's a couple of ones that stuck out broadly there. Energy, for one, being, you know, it's bad enough at the moment. You know what I mean? Having the centralised energy control, it's going to make things a lot worse, isn't it?
The energy side of it stems back to the original reason to put together which was then the European Economic Union, the EEC. And originally it was a group of countries that got together to make sure, if you think of the end of the Second World War, they were all clamouring to get hold of nuclear weapon technology. And the only way Europe could do it was by instigating your nuclear power stations so they could enrich the uranium to use for fuel for bombs. So the sooner Europe got its backside into gear after the Second World War to level itself up with the Americans, and the fact that the Russians were clamouring to make a bomb, and that's why the energy bit was put together, because originally it was like for electricity and coal, and then when nuclear energy came along, they all agreed that, like, we're going to make it so that we've all got some nuclear, and that's why the energy thing's in there. But as I say, the original reason to start this EU thing that we know now was basically because the great minds of Europe decided that they didn't want a European war anymore, and so they decided to come with an economic union, which was something that would tie them all together in a unity, a bond of friendship, so that we would never go to war with each other again.
Okay, that's a pretty lofty ideal.
Well, it was usurped anyway, because I don't know whether anybody looked at the Christopher Story post that I put up last night about the EU. You find out that in 1942, the Germans had already got their heads around this and decided that the fighting war was lost because the whole world was joining in. And the fighting war could be lost quite easily. They realised that in 1942. So loads of German officers and a think tank moved to Spain. And if I did my homework properly, I'd be able to name this organisation, but it ends in Geschaft. And Christopher Story says it much better than I do in the video, but this organisation got together knowing that if they got together as a think tank, they could, rather than be defeated physically in a war, they wouldn't be defeated mentally, because they would instigate something that would basically bugger up the United Kingdom.
Yeah, so like lose the war but win the peace.
Well, win the peace in their terms, yeah. So they came with this economic union, which was basically just a trade pact to start with. But the successive treaties, like Maastricht, after the Nice Treaty, well, the first treaty was the Paris Treaty, I believe. That was where the original countries already agreed to get together and do this. But that was under, I think, General de Gaulle of France was the leading figure that got all that together. But he never wanted Britain in the EU. And every time Britain tried to get in, he was the one that stopped us from joining. But I tend to think that was a case of denying somebody something enough times until eventually they'll make excuses to join it. So if you keep them at bay long enough, then they'll just fall in nice and easy.
Well, I have read, right, there are some sort of opt-outs that we've got, or alleged opt-outs that our government are saying, you know, don't worry, even after this, we've still got, they call them red lines, which are like basically our opt-out clauses, like vetoes for particular things that Europe might want to enforce. And I do look at, I mean, I know November 1st hasn't happened yet, but our snooping charter, remember that recently? It was judged by the European courts that it was illegal and that we shouldn't be doing it, snooping on our own people like we do. And we just said, well, we're going to bring some emergency measures in and two fingers up, basically. We're just going to do it anyway. And I'm wondering what the situation of that's going to be like after November the 1st. I mean,
I think that's going to be
going to have powers to say, well, and force us, you know?
I think that's going to be harder for the
Yeah.
British government to avoid European legislation, because once the treaty is ratified, which it is on November the 1st, and that's the time when all the member states, it can't be ratified until all member states sign the treaty. Well, it's already been signed. It was Douglas Hurd in John Major's government that signed it. And in my notes, there's a little statement that only appeared in Tory Central Office in one of their internal articles. And this was a little bit that was pinched by Christopher Story, and I think it appears in his book, The EU Collective. And Douglas Hurd would basically said, I suppose now we've signed it, we better read it. So no one who signed that treaty at the time had actually read it or studied it before they signed it. So that's how desperate we were to understand it before we let ourselves know what we were getting into.
Yeah.
And to me, that gives a sign to say that is the agenda they're on, because it's going to happen anyway, whether we like it or not.
Well, I think it gives them greater scope to say, well, you know, it's been ratified, and they can bring it in bit by bit, you know, and that we're going to have less chance to stick our fingers up because, like I say, it's already gone through.
Yeah, well, on November the 1st, common law goes out the window, apparently. And if you think of all the work that people have been doing, you know, the Tony Meehan's, the Jesus of Kayaking, and all the, you know, like the UK column, what they've done, there's John Harris did a lot of work on breaking common law down, the British Constitution group, they've done a lot of work on it. All these people have been involved trying to get us all to get our head around common law, and all of a sudden on November the 1st, that goes out the window in favour of corpus juris. And please, people, look that up, G-A-U-R-I-S, corpus. That is, well, corpus is a dead thing. A corpse is dead, isn't it? So the jurisdiction is they're going to treat you like a dead person. Basically, similar to the straw man with the title. But
Screen share it. I've got too much running at the moment.
Okay.
Corpus juris.
Oh, right.
I've got too much running at the moment for screen share it.
What you on about? What screen share? What?
Corpus juris.
Oh, do you mean just Google it or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's butcher.
Yeah, Google, yeah, if you Google Corpus Juris, it'll tell you.
Okay. I'll screen share as well. That might be an idea, hadn't it?
Because that's beyond my technical capability at the moment, folks.
No problem, mate. I've got it.
That's because I'm, you know,
Here we go.
50% computer illiterate.
All right,
Body of law, yeah.
we'll have you flying through it like us. There you go. Your Honour.
The legal term corpus juris means body of law. It was originally used by the Romans for several of their collections of all of their laws in a certain field. Later, the term was used for comprehensive collections of laws in the US, as in corpus juris secundum. The term is commonly used to refer to the entire body of a law of a country, jurisdiction or court.
What does the actual word mean, though? Really?
Is what the literal translation you mean?
Corpus is body and juris is law. And
That's what I meant, sorry. Well, that's a good one put across as well, actually.
so basically, you are guilty of everything until you prove your innocence. Whereas at the moment, the way it should stand, I know Ken Clark's been tinkering about with secret courts and star chambers and things like that. But the way it stands right now, you're guilty until proven innocent. If someone has got a charge against you, has got to come with a body of factual evidence to prove that you're guilty of that. Under corpus juris, if you're suspected of something, you're arrested until you can get enough evidence to prove that you are not doing what they suspect you of, which is the other way around. It's totally the opposite.
That's gonna mean massive. That's gonna big ramifications for the whole of our legal profession.
Plus, if you take into consideration some of the other things that have been mentioned about what comes in with ratification, is the fact that at the stroke of a pen with this thing, it literally, if the government deem it, and I mean, I'm not talking the British government, if the European government say to our government that so many of the police on the streets of your country have now got to be Euro police, then we're going to have a body of foreign policemen who are policing us when our government has told us nothing about this new form of law. How have they educated us?
At the same time, though, I think there are a lot of scare and horror stories going around as well. Because that's true. They could put a load of Euro police on our streets, but just because good doesn't mean it's going to happen. You know what I mean?
The most important thing is under our present system, we are entitled under common law. I know we don't always get this, but we are entitled under common law to be judged by a jury of our peers of 12 men. Under corpus juris, you are judged by a committee of, say, magistrates or councillors or law councillors or judges. So it's falling into the hands of this Ken Clark secret court star chamber nonsense. And I'm sorry, I would prefer, if I'm being accused of something, whether I've done it or not, if I'm being accused of something and I have to go to a court, I would sooner be judged by 12 good men and true, rather than, if we're going by how judges, magistrates and everything else perform in this country, then I'm saying that they're 99.999% corrupt. So we're going to have literally a European-based system which is going to use corrupt jurisdiction and corrupt judges, whatever. They're all going to be it's going to be a different kind of thing, totally.
It's that centralisation of power, isn't it, and the ease of which you can corrupt that. If you've got more devolved states and more localised power structures, then obviously you've got to get at more than one power structure in order to corrupt them.
And I think in Scotland, the Scottish policing system is slightly different to ours. but it's more in favour of the European style thing. But I think in Scotland, you're still innocent until proven guilty, basically, at the end of the day. I know there's certain events gone on recently that would tend to prove otherwise, i.e. Robert Greene, who's still under house arrest. He was taken and kidnapped from his own home by Scottish police when he lived in England and taken up to Scotland, and he's still not had a charge brought against him.
He's still in prison for that charge?
Well, he's under house arrest.
Yeah, okay.
He's not allowed to go out of his house at all. He's not allowed to go on the internet. He's not allowed very much communication with people. But that's Scottish.
Have they used one of those new bullshit TPIMs, the terrorist prevention measures?
No, I think they've used a control order on him. But
same thing, yeah. And how's he in any way related to terrorism? That's why control orders were introduced.
But in Robert Greene's case, it's there's enough evidence to say that they've done that basically to gag the guy rather than bring any charges against him. Because if all he was doing is defending a child that has been sexually abused by a paedophile ring, then how can he have done anything wrong? And he's been silenced. But if this, you can see how corrupted this European law thing could be in favour of the way things are going now. And if we're getting a raw deal now, God knows what will happen when this comes in on November the 1st.
Yeah, and you can just see like the whole attitude being, well, it's out of our hands. There's nothing we can do about it. Go complain to those at Europe if you don't like it, And I don't ever remember asking for this or saying this was okay, do you?
No, and these are the points that everybody needs to look at now. Is the fact that Magna Carta, and I know we're going back like 12-something, 1223, whenever.
Do you want me to read it out?
Our law goes back to Magna Carta. And purely and simply, and Tony Meehan was saying this the other night on Dinner's open house thing, that our laws are maxims are things that are historical, and something like the decisions that were made from Magna Carta, i.e. Article 61, it's historical to the extent that it's over 800 years old. It's irrefutable law. No one can change it. Absolutely no one can change that law because it's been there that long and it's been part of our constitution for that long. It's irrefutable. You can't overturn that law. So how can anything that happens on November the 1st overturn that law without there being some treachery, tyranny and treason involved? This is the big point, that the government aren't going to talk to you about it. This is why they're putting you off by talking to you about hairdryers and Hoovers and Scottish referendums, because this affects the Scottish as well. I don't care what anybody says. If they're going to be given or become a region of Europe, they'll come under corpus juris, and that means their law system's got to change. But their law system is just as historical as our law system. Yeah. And according to our constitution, it can't be overturned because, as I've mentioned before, it works together with the clause that William of Orange put in the declaration and the contract that he signed with British sovereigns in perpetuity. We are the sovereigns.
But you say like it can't be overturned though. But at what point? Are you saying like even this European ratification can't overturn it? I think
no.
But at some point,
not officially. But if it does get overturned,
powerful than the other piece of paper. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. If it does get overturned, it means that our MPs are committing treason. And if you look at the steps that during Tony Blair's government that were made, the Treason Act and all this jazz has been softened down. Anyone, if you can prove that someone's committed treason, and you can prove that within a 2 or 3, I think it's a 3-year period, if you can prove that they did it within 3 years of them doing it, then they can be arrested for treason.
It's
But
the only
Jack
thing you've still
Straw,
got the death penalty for, I think, isn't it?
yeah, but Jack Straw made it so any report of treason after 3 years you can't go after. So Douglas Hurd and the chap who went with him to witness the treaty being signed actually committed treason by committing Britain or the UK to this treaty that was going to invoke powers further down the line that can't be brought in unless there's a level of tyranny in the country. So by invoking Article 61 of the Magna Carta, we go back to the Queen and say, look, you know, it's your job because you are the Queen of the people.
And so by proxy, she's treasonous as well.
But the other problem we've got is this complicates it even more, is that in 1911, the then Labour government, I mean, bearing in mind, those that were in the know in 1911 knew that there was war coming. It was part of the agenda that was set up. I know we've talked about this, but they knew that there was a war coming, but also that the then King Edward the Seventh, who was the bearded chap who, you know, King Edward cigars, that guy, Queen Victoria's son, he was king, but he lived such a lifestyle that, like, you know, he could have popped off any time because of you know, basically his health and stuff. And they brought out the Parliament Act, and with King Edward VII dying, it never got signed. And basically, the Parliament Act gave Parliament the power to usurp royal assent, because before then, every act or piece of legislation that went through Parliament had to have royal assent. And not everything, not every act, and not every piece of legislation got royal assent. If the king thought, no, you can't do that to my people, no, you're not having that one, they would stop it. Well, he died in I think it was 1911, and along comes George V, and they approached George V and said, look, this was about to happen during our last Parliament, we need you to sign this. And he said, no, I'm not signing that. He said, the only time I will sign it is if you have another election, and if the people vote to have you lot back in again and you come to me again to ask me to sign it, then I've got no choice. And it was King George V that eventually signed over the power of royal assent. And I do know that when Tony Blair was in, I can't remember what it was for, but he used the Parliament Act to overrule something that the Queen wasn't very happy about. It was probably the hunting ban, because he knew that would affect royalty and, you know, what their desire to hunt is.
Oh, they've got a bloodlust down half, haven't they?
Yeah, so they probably used, I mean, for a good thing this time, they probably used the Parliament Act to invoke the hunting ban, which was a good thing. It was used for a good purpose. But when you think that this government can use the Parliament Act and the Queen has her powers usurped in some kind of way, then she's not really a queen of the people. And if this happens on November the 1st and it's allowed to ratify and our law is overturned, then where does that leave the Queen? Because she's not the Queen of the people anymore.
Yeah.
And she's she's supposed to protect us in our laws and customs, which is
you don't actually expect
law.
To do that, though, do you?
Well, I do know that yesterday David Cameron had to go to see the Queen for a discussion about her concern over the Union. Now that gives you the impression that that she wants to keep Scotland in the Union, but I also think that, like, you know, there's other things afoot. Because if you think about it, if Scotland breaks away from the Union, then there's no longer a union. There can't be. It's impossible. You can't have a union when we're not all in a union.
Yeah.
It's part of a union. So you've not got. If something happens to this country, then there's the Scottish mandate missing. Plus, also the Scottish have always put more into the English budget than they've taken out. So either way, if the Scots pull out, it's going to affect the English people financially. Something's got to give.
Oh, isn't it hilarious the way all the politicians are running up to Scotland tomorrow?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't this brilliant? Yeah. I love this.
Yeah. Yeah.
When have you ever known this happen? All three of them are saying, "Yeah, stay in the union. Don't go Scotland. Please don't go Scotland."
Well, I'm saying that the only future. I mean, I've been trying to get my head around what's going on, because if Scotland say yes and break away from the union, then there's going to be turmoil, because once they've said yes, that doesn't mean to say that it's going to be Alex Salmond's version, because they've got to go away, and for so many months it's got to be discussed what kind of independent Scotland they're going to have, and they've got to vote. Yeah. I think they've got to vote and decide on that. So, but I've not heard anyone in the yes or no argument, and I mean, good luck to anyone who wants to pull away from this parliament, because they're a shower of shit, man. They're the most corrupt parliament that we've ever had since the parliament bloody ran.
Well, I was thinking about this earlier, yeah. I was thinking, good on Scotland, they need to grab it with both hands, yeah, grab it and run. And I was thinking, hold on, I don't want to be represented by them in Westminster either. And is it just my bad luck that I just so happen to be in England and I don't get to choose? You know what I mean? Can we not break? Could we not break away from them as well? You know what I mean?
Well, taking it a stage further, if the treaty is ratified on November the 1st, then something else happens. It's not just the breakup of the union. The laws and customs of the people who are left in this union, and basically, I mean, when Runnymede was going on, that was like men of England who challenged the King of England, King John. So we're left with no Scotland. I mean, we already know the Welsh have got their own Welsh Assembly, and the Welsh have got enough fucking problems without us dragging them into our shit. So basically, we are English, and we're a walkover, because we can't be asked to read anything. You know, everything that we know about anything all comes from the Daily Mirror, the Sun and the Star, and there might be the other one or two that's doing the Express and the Mail. But everything that the average Joe out there knows is coming from there. Not one paper has talked about November the 1st and put all this shit into context. No one's. If you think like Scotland's gone, then we're vulnerable then, because it's already. You know, it's already been said that we're all going to become regions of Europe. I think Devon and Cornwall come under some part of France. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think Yorkshire's got its own region. I don't know about the Midlands area. We'll probably get our own region. But hang on a minute. But at the same time, you're not finding Nigel Farage, Miliband, Cameron, or Clegg talking about the one thing that holds all this lot together, and that is our sovereignty. And under the law, under this Magna Carta thing, we are the sovereigns, because the Queen can't be a sovereign if she's not got any sovereigns.
No, of course.
You know, and I'm not talking pieces of gold. I'm talking about that this group of British people together have got is this sovereignty over our little bit of land. And I know it's just lines on a map, but when someone is about to walk in, who you've not voted for, who I've not voted for, you know, the only time I've ever been involved with any of this European thing was when I voted the way I voted, whether or not I wanted to join what was called then the common market. And what was sold to people at the time, because I was a young bloke with a kid, married, and we got a council house, right? And what was sold to us in 1973 was that this economic union. Now, no one at that time, not even the talk about Europe. There may have been rumours, but these, as far as we were concerned at the time, were political ideologies. And you know, it's bad enough you're trying to get your head around this, and everyone's thinking, what is this going to do for Britain? And all we got from government was, and from Ted Heath and from the Tories, was this bullshit about how it would do us good economic, and it's only an economic union. It's a trade agreement, you know. There's no politics involved. It's not like they're going to take you. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So we were
stretch far into your lives.
My generation, as a young married man, I was sold this dream that if we were together as a big place that were trading with each other, I foolishly believed, along with most of the British population, I foolishly believed, because in 1973 the painting game came to a fucking abrupt end because there was a bust for it, and they stopped building council houses. And so around the end of 1974, I stretched it out till then, and eventually in 1975, that's why I know so much about Raleigh Cycles, because I went to work for Raleigh, and they were shipping bikes out everywhere, and everyone who worked in that factory in 1973 was under the auspices of an idea that by joining Europe, we would be selling more bikes to France, more bikes to Italy, more bikes here than everywhere. Look what happened to fucking Raleigh, man. Raleigh's the figment of someone's imagination. It's just a piece of history now. If you walk down the street where Raleigh was, it took up 2 roads, quite a big area. It's all student accommodation.
In Derby, yeah?
In Nottingham.
Nottingham, right.
And Raleigh was one of the biggest factories. At the time I worked for it, they employed 4,000 people doing all sorts of skills. You know, most of it is just like, you know, sitting in front of a power press, bang, 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 all day long. But
machine operators are very important, mate.
Well, everyone was under the impression that the economic union was going to do this country good. And to be honest, we all need to wake up to the fact that the first thing it killed was the fishing industry, and we had the finest fishing fleet on the planet. Yeah. Because basically that's what we were. We've been fishermen from time immemorial. That's why we're so good on boats. Because we're
an island, man.
Yeah. So it killed the fishing. Then it gradually, over a period of time, killed the agriculture because of the common agricultural policy and bullshit like this. So ever since we've been in this economic union, all we've ever done is had more and more rules piled on top of the way that we used to live, and instead of, because I mean, this is just a few countries in Europe, 20-odd countries, whatever. But bearing in mind, Britain used to trade with over 100 countries all over the world, and even though we moved from an empire to a commonwealth, we were still exporting, because anything that had got a little Union Jack on it, or you know, it was at one time it was classed as a good quality store.
It was, yeah, it was once, man. Yeah.
I mean, it was only the likes of British Leyland that bloody well let us down, and things like the Austin Allegro, you know. I mean, what the hell was that all about? Or the Austin Princess. I don't know whether you remember that. What a piece of shit.
Allegro was all right, man. I remember. Well, I didn't ever have an Allegro, but I remember parents having one. It was a decent car, if I remember, man.
Yeah, all the mechanics called it the Austin Agro. But all I'm saying is that ever since we've been part of Europe, the industry itself in this country has imploded on itself. You know, like you know, fishing industry gone, agriculture affected, fuck the miners off, get rid of the steel workers, kill the shipyards.
All our lock makers virtually have gone as well. That's a local industry to here. Nearly all the lock makers long gone.
Along with this November ratification is also going to come something else, and that's the strengthening of this corporate-backed collectivist fucking neo-fascist Marxist bollocks that goes along with it. And they've got to have this harsh jurisdiction to police it, because they know that people are going to be moaning like shit, because it's not going to do us any good. It might bring a few more McDonald's on the street and a few more Costa coffees.
Well, I hate to nick a David Icke phrase, but it's the totalitarian tiptoe, isn't it? You know,
That's it.
It's been one layer after another after another.
Yeah. And on November the 1st, it's there to smack us all in the face. But the problem is, and to get that to that stage, we've got successive governments since 1973 have committed treason, but you can't do anything about it, because if it was more than 3 years ago, it's all been washed away because
somehow it didn't happen.
And a couple of years ago, I think it was 2009. It was the last year that Tony Blair was in office. 2008. It was somewhere around about there anyway, the winter of. And I remember one February, I was out of work, because you don't usually get work till about March. I remember one February sitting in one afternoon, and in one afternoon, 251, I think it was, pieces of legislation sailed through Parliament in the blink of a fucking eye, man, in a 2.5 hour period. And that was what the Labour Party sneaked in. And
ignorance is not meant to be any defence, is it, in the eyes of the law? And yet
most
all
of that shit is to do with what's happening on November the 1st.
Oh, this the most recent ones, yeah?
Yeah.
Well,
and if you remember, I'm sure it was the Labour people who signed the bloody Lisbon Treaty. You know, that was the last one that was to be signed.
Okay.
But they were saying, oh no, there's bits of the Lisbon Treaty that we're not. But somewhere on the end of one of these treaties, I mean, there's pages and pages and pages of stuff on it. But
I don't think it would have mattered though, would it? I think whoever would have been in power would have sold us down the river, whatever. But I'll tell you what makes me laugh: the way I think it's Cameron, isn't it? Yeah, saying, oh, if you vote for us, if you vote Conservative, we're going to give you a referendum on Europe next term, which is such a bloody cynical, blatantly cynical ploy to try and get them re-elected anyway, isn't it? But
when
by the time their next term comes around, we'll already be in Europe. It won't be you want to go in Europe or not. It'll be we're already fucking there.
That's the problem. If they were so fortunate as to get a Conservative government in next time, and David Cameron was so clever to be the next Prime Minister, and this referendum came around, if anyone, an ordinary voter, took part in that referendum, then that means something else to Europe and to those in Parliament. It means that we agree with the tyranny and the treason that they've committed, and we're just putting our names on it by agreeing to have a referendum.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're giving it legitimacy, aren't you?
Yeah, we've given the treason legitimacy, and no, never again can anyone go to Parliament and say, look, you lot's committed treason. If we don't, somehow we've got to think deep about how we're going to react as people over November the 1st and the ratification of the Nice Treaty, you know. And I think, and it's no good looking through the treaty because it's all legalese bollocks, and there's nothing, you know. We're going to get a few clues from the articles that we've found on Google and stuff, but it's not going to answer the question of this one thing is getting the politicians to actually realise that the people know that they're all in a tyranny. It can't be anything else. Yeah. If treason's being committed to usurp our laws and customs out from under our feet, then that's fucking treason. That means all of them are committing treason now, this second.
The worst of it is, as well, it's not if their intentions are good or bad. I mean, I think we can probably all say, you know, we probably think they're bad, but we're giving them the tools with which to commit tyranny.
We consent into it.
Yeah, we're like giving them the keys to the kingdom and saying, there you go. And if you want to be tossers to us, then off you go.
Well, what I'm looking at,
the resolution at the moment is to go into lawful rebellion, but not a lot of people have got the knowledge and the loss of fear, because that's what it takes. Because if you go into lawful rebellion, you've got to reject what comes after November the 1st, and the consequences of what you're rejecting is the fact that you're going to turn around to them. Because if you don't, if you comply with the treason, once you know it's treason, you're also complicit with that treason charge if you don't do something about it, right? So as a group of people, I'm not saying a collective, but as many people as possible, we need, there are moves afoot on Facebook with the banks and the bailiffs. There are moves on Facebook to do something about it, but they're talking lawful rebellion, and you've got to be really serious and say to yourself, right, I'm not going to pay no more income tax. I'm going to rebel against that. I'm not going to pay no more council tax. In fact, I'm not going to do and take any notice of any law that is quoted from Westminster after November the 1st. And you've got to be a real big man of courage to be able to do all that and battle with the responsibility that is. But once you do take on lawful rebellion,
if you do that, you know what's going to be coming at you.
Yeah, you're going to get the shit chucked at you, mate. And that, to me, in itself, is another form of enforcement from the European side, because it's putting up this mental barrier to people to say, well, you know, I don't think I can handle that.
Yeah.
And what goes along with it. But that is the only way, it is if everyone gets their head around what's gone. We haven't got long, it's only about 7.5 weeks. So, you know, I put up a discussion, a Google Hangout that I found last night, and one of the guys on that Hangout is Mike Robinson from the UK column. Another guy that's on there is, he was an advisor, a parliamentary advisor.
Mm-hmm.
on this stuff around 1999, when several politicians put in a petition for independence, for England to become independent. And that's you know, looking at the information I can find about that. If there's I've not found any yet. I only found out what they were talking about, but I haven't really had a chance to look into it, because I watched this video myself about this time last night. And the discussion's on for an hour. I put it up on Google last night, and it's a guy called Mike Timmins, and they're discussing whether or not Parliament has committed treason. So, and it's quite a deep discussion. There's another guy who's written a book on the treason behind Maastricht. He's in the discussion group, so there's some right heavy-duty brains in there who really know what they're talking about, and it's well worth listening to get your head around what the crack is, what's going on.
What was that, Kendo? What was the name of him? Timmins?
Mike Timmins. I think if you check on Google, I'll put it up last night. I'll just have a look on here, and I'll reshare it again if you like.
Yeah, that'd be cool, man.
But it was, I'll tell you in a second, because it'll be up. Yeah, it's a discussion, a chat box just like this with about 5 or 6 people in it, but all these people are like specialists on this subject. And one of them is your Mike Robinson, the guy with the pullover and glasses from the UK column.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so it's worth looking at. And I took a rooting around to find as much as I could with like, you know, stuff you can listen to, basically.
So what, have you put the link in? Or is it just the UK column?
No, it's not the UK column. I'm gonna tell you what the if you wanna, I'll read it out to you if you want to type it up. I'm just scrolling down to the post at the moment.
Oh, right, yeah.
As soon as I've got it, I'll click on it, and it'll come up on YouTube, and I can read you the URL.
Oh, sorry.
In fact, you know, I'll share it again on Google. That would be the easiest thing to do, wouldn't it? So it'd be like a fresh post tonight.
Wonderful idea.
Not far to go now, chaps. Here
That's
we go. That's it. I'll click on there.
that Regina the Queen v. Jar.
Hang on a sec.
Lawful arguments
Click on there.
of fiction and sovereignty. Elizabeth Alexandra Mary Battenberg's fraudulent coronation.
Yeah.
I'm just nipping for a slash, guys. I'll see you in a minute.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the picture of the debt collector on Aim and Shames, by the way. How perfect is that?
If you want me to read out the URL, Dean, because it's no good me trying to copy and paste it in the chat box.
Just a second.
I'll tell you what. I'll share it on Google Fresh. Then anybody who's in the chat room can just go and have a look at the latest post, and you'll see it's this chat box. It's on for about an hour. Rick Timmins, treason. Have UK politicians committed treason? And it's on for an hour and 8 minutes.
Yeah, this
That's
is
it.
why.
Have UK politicians committed treason by handing governance to a foreign power? And it's really an interesting lesson. And there's some good brains on there.
Yeah, that's why we're bringing this to like kind of. It's not only government committing treason. It's also a Queen.
That's right. Yeah.
You shall. Oh, what is it now? There is a part in it that says she's not allowed to relinquish her power unless upon her brethren. By relinquishing sovereignty, she's committing treason. It is somewhere, it was either in this, I've read it, or it was in the Magna Carta. I'm sure this was taken from the Magna Carta, though.
I've got the bit ready to invoke. I've got the invocation of Clause 61. I can read that out to people.
I've got it here.
Basically, when they invoke Clause 61, a petition is sent to 4 barons to let them know that the people are in lawful revolt because those who are managing the company under the wing of the Queen are running the country into a tyranny, and they're being tyrannous towards their people. So you can invoke Clause 61 of the Magna Carta, and basically what it means is these 4 barons have permission to approach the Queen and give her the reasons why the people are unhappy, and along with that she gets 40 days to do something about it.
Yeah.
And then if she doesn't do anything about that after 40 days, then quite frankly the country's in lawful rebellion. And we're not bound by what laws come out of Parliament.
61.
Clause 61 of the Magna Carta makes it clear that if people are wronged by the Crown and no remedy is forthcoming, after all steps have been exhausted, that the people may take whatever action is necessary to obtain satisfaction without fear of reprisal. As Sir Winston Churchill wrote in The History of the English-Speaking Peoples in 1956, the underlying idea of the sovereignty of the law, long existent in feudal custom, was raised into a doctrine for the nation state. In other words, it became our law and our custom, and we lived by it for all those years. And when in subsequent ages the state, swollen with its own authority, has attempted to ride roughshod over the rights and liberties of the subject, it is to this doctrine, Magna Carta, that appeal has again and again been made, and never as yet without success. Now remember that. You know, every time this has happened in the past, we've called and appealed to the Magna Carta to use this system to bring things right, and it has never failed. As it says, has never yet been without success. The people were previously rebuffed when noble lords invoked Clause 61 of the Magna Carta on the 7th of February 2001, at which time they asked Your Majesty to withhold royal assent from the Treaty of Nice. On behalf of the people, we therefore invoke the authority of Magna Carta 1215 to 1297, Clause 61, which states, as repeated with great distinctness by Henry III in 1216, or between 1216 and 72, it shall be lawful for everyone in our realm to rise against the government to use all the ways and means they can to hinder until that in which have transgressed and offenced shall have been brought again into due state. In other words, we are bound by Clause 61 and lawful rebellion to do everything we can do to hinder the state without being, that's the main thing, it's a lawful rebellion. So you can quite say, right, I'm not paying no income tax. You know, anything that affects the state without getting aggressive, you have got the right to do under Clause 61. And it's Parliament's duty to put all these problems right, otherwise they stay in tyranny. And it said, we appeal to Your Majesty, the European Union is on the point of becoming the dominant authority in all matters at law and in economic governance. It is time, therefore, that people ask a very direct question of Your Majesty. Do the people of the realm remain free under English common law, still in force, or are they de facto ruled by European civil law, with the powers of Parliament, your government and the military forces removed from your exclusive command? So the next bit goes on to say that the transfer of powers to the European Union from the United Kingdom government of the Queen in Parliament under God since the European Communities Act 1972 has been massive. These powers have been obtained by stealth until there is virtually no area of policy from which the EU is excluded. And that's bloody wrong.
I've got that. So, that clause 61, I've got it here. It's what I'm screen sharing now.
Yeah, and they've actually, in February of this year, Article 61 was invoked, and that's. I also put up an article from the Telegraph last night. Peers invoke Article 61 of the Magna Carta, because it appeared in the Daily Telegraph in February. So, just to.
So since move over God for and the amendment of our kingdom, and for the better allaying of the equal that has arisen between us and our barons, we have granted all these concessions. Desirous. I couldn't get that out then. That they should enjoy them in a complete and firm endurance forever. We give it and grant. Do you want to finish that, Ken?
Yeah, we give and grant to them the underwritten security, namely, that the barons choose 5 and 20 barons, that's 25 of them, of the kingdom, whomsoever they will, who shall be bound with all their might to observe and hold and cause to be observed the peace and liberties we have granted and confirmed to them by this our present charter, so that if we or our justicia or our bailiffs or any one of our officers shall in anything be at fault towards anyone, or shall have broken any one of the articles of this peace or of this security, and the offence be notified to 4 of the foresaid 5 and 20, the said 4 barons shall repair to us or our justicia if we are out of the realm, and, laying the transgression before us, petition to have the transgression redressed without delay. And if we shall not have corrected the transgression, or in the event of our being out of the realm, or if our justicia shall not have corrected it, within 40 days, reckoning from the time it has been intimated to us, or to our justicia, or if we should be out of the realm, the 4 barons aforesaid shall refer to that matter to the rest of the 25 barons, and those 25 barons shall, together with the community of the whole realm, distrain and distress us in all possible ways, namely by seizing our castles, lands, possessions, and in any other way they can, until redress has been obtained as they deem fit, saving harmless our own person, and in other words, you don't hurt them, you just take the stuff, and can and persons of our queen and children, and when redress has been obtained, they shall resume their old relations toward us, and let whoever in the country desires it swear to obey the orders of, and then we're right down the bottom there. So basically what that's saying is that there's 25 barons who have been appointed and are appointed all the time. They're there all the time to keep an eye in case the people are pissed off and get transgressed by the government. And if 4 of them are notified, then it's the duty of those 4 to approach the rest of the 25 to let them know that the people of this country are pissed off. And then it's the 25's job to make sure that the people are protected while we get redress for that, what they've done. And the 4 barons have been, they were petitioned in February this year, as far as I know. But still, we see nothing on the news. It's all Ubers and air dryers, as I've said. So, where's Huxley gone for that P? Skegness. So it's a case of we've got to do something, and this needs to get round. I've been talking to my neighbours about it, and he's definitely not happy about the way the law changes. And I mentioned it to that friend of mine this evening, and she went, "You what? That's not right. That can't be right at all." And I said, "Well, that's what happens on November the 1st if they get their way." She says, "No, that's not right."
A minute, cannot. I'd been talking away, and I didn't know I was on mute. I can't believe that. I've been on mute for ages and I didn't know. Sorry about that. I really thought I was talking to you. I put the link, is now in the about section, description of the video, if anybody wants to jump on for last hour. Yeah, sorry Ken, no, I've been talking away.
You're alright, mate. You're alright.
And I didn't know I was on mute.
I'm just going to check the chat box because I want to see what folks are saying, see if they're as pissed off as me, because this is some really important shit that we need to know that nobody's...
Alright, I'm back. Hello. Sorry, I got a coffee while I was away.
Oh, well done.
How's it going? You alright?
Did you mute me up, actually?
No.
I've been talking
to that. I do think it's funny though on Hangage the way you can do that. You can mute each other, man. You shouldn't be allowed to do that, should you?
I know, yeah. I was talking away to Ken, and I didn't know I'd been muted, and I've been on other pages talking away to him. Why is he not listening to me?
Oh, you and your microphones, Dean. You're great.
Just not have any thing in my microphone. I was actually reading out the what's it. I don't know if you heard that bit where I was reading out the bits about the Magna Carta and all
that. No, I missed it. The bits that you were
I mean, did you?
Oh, do you mean like the lawful rebellion stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've read through it before. What's saying stuff about how you've got to tell the Queen and how they'll inform their network of superiors and all that sort of shit.
Well, I've got to find a little bit more out about that. I'm not so sure that we have to notify the Queen, because I think it's the
Barons, isn't it?
it's the barons that have to do that. All we have to do is get a petition to the barons, and I think.
Yeah. Oh, I thought I'd heard lots of stories of people saying, "Oh, I'm in lawful rebellion now. I've sent me letter to the Queen and she hasn't replied in 30 days." So
Well, I would imagine you can do it. Yeah. That sort of makes sense. I've got a friend of mine who's sent his letter to the Queen. But,
and she actually replied?
No.
Oh, what a rude cow.
Ian's just saying in chat room, large chemical factory explosion in Germany.
Bremen.
Okay.
Yeah. A large toxic gas cloud moving west. Residents told to close windows. Yeah. Yeah, like Ian says. Yeah, really.
I'm all right. I'm on Firefox.
Are we on Firefox?
Yeah, I'm on Firefox. Yeah, so if you're on Windows, you're gonna have to close it.
No, I'm not on Windows. I'm on Firefox. I don't do Explorer. It's not.
Internet Explorer is the devil's child.
Yeah.
Doughboy, the Queen isn't happy about the fact she might be losing Scotland. No, she ain't. Cameron is going to get his ass kicked by the Queen if he loses Scotland. No, I think the opposite. I think Cameron is being paid to destroy Britain. If you look at everything that's going on, possibly from Tony Blair onwards, I mean, the breakdown of families and all people are falling out with each other all over the place. There's all this let's get the Muslims thing going on in the newspapers at the moment.
Yeah.
And all this is leading to the disharmony and like the smoking ban on the pubs. If a pub's got more than 2 rooms, I can't have one room smoking and the other one non-smoking.
What about the fucking electronic cigarette smoking ban? What the fuck's all that about?
Well, you knew that was coming.
What a load of shit that is. Fuck me. I mean, like you say, yeah, if it's up to you, yeah, and if it's up to the people in the place, if they want to go in the smoking room or not, why shouldn't there be the choice? That's all it is, isn't it? It's the fucking choice.
And they said it's a work issue. People have to work in it. So, well, fair enough then. So it's a smoking bar. So if you're a smoker, you can have a job. If you're a non-smoker, then I advise you not to work behind this bar. But if you do, it's at your own risk.
Of course.
And why do you want to suck in all this?
Of course, man. And as for the electronic thing, that was the World Health Organization last week, I think, wasn't it? Put a report out, and it was so much bullshit in there. It was untrue. It was saying, right, that electronic cigarettes are like a gateway drug. So kids, how stupid is this? So kids, yeah, who haven't got any nicotine addiction and like aren't interested in smoking cigarettes, will get attracted by the e-cigarettes, think, oh, nice, get an addiction for nicotine, and then ditch the electronic cigarettes and go on to the actual cigarettes. And even sillier, they said in there that nicotine was, I mean, this might be true, but it sounds like bollocks. Nicotine is what was the word they use? Like a preparatory? Is that the word? It prepares your brain sensors to enjoy cocaine. Apparently.
Never done cocaine.
In other words, the sales on cocaine's going down, so they need more.
Meanwhile, which was mentioned last night, think Cookie Monster had a go on it for a while. Is if you got a kid diagnosed with this fake diagnosis, ADD or ADHD, which is questionable as a diagnosis. If you got kids diagnosis with that, that's an excuse for the government to suggest that you put them on Ritalin, which is a serotonin suppressor, and whatever. So
A primer. It was a primer. Yeah.
it's not a primer when you've got half the school population of school. I mean, because there's loads of them with ADHD and ADD now.
Well, the thing is, right, you're always going to have kids. Kids are kids, yeah. We all know kids are like hyperactive or energetic, yeah. And shit, kids want attention as well. That's not news either. And it makes sense that you're going to get kids on a spectrum of that. Some will want more attention and be more hyperactive, and some will be less. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean any of them are fucking have got some sort of imbalance, does it?
No, but they're trying to give us the impression that we're all mentally ill at the moment, aren't we?
Yeah,
I think, in reality, those who are mentally ill are those that's ruling us, because it's their cognitive dissonance that keeps telling them that they're not running a dictatorship, but it's our cognitive dissonance that keeps telling us they are.
Right, mate.
But,
Have you ever seen that, Jack? Have you ever looked over it?
I've not, no.
It's, hang on, I'll find a link, I'll put it in the chat room.
I do know that the latest diagnosis that psychiatrists can use is this new one, which gives Theresa May powers to get you under MAPA, the multi-agency something, police powers, whatever. And that's not very nice, but it's oppositional defective disorder. And it means basically you wear a tinfoil hat and sit on the internet talking to people about...
No, yeah. Not come up with a mental illness for that shit.
They have. If you become vexatious to the local council and start being this kind of person that writes really meaningful, truthful letters to councillors and MPs, and they describe you as vexatious, especially, let's say for the sake of argument, you were somebody who discovered all this evidence about the fact that your local council hadn't done the books properly for God knows how many years, and there was a few £1 million missing in the pockets.
Oh, heaven forbid! Not our council.
Well, you would be described as vexatious, and then you would come under this regime,
And what does that mean if you get labels with that?
It means that they can use various powers to neutralise your vexation. And now they've come with this latest diagnosis that obviously all the psychiatrists have been trained by the system. So if you come under this new diagnosis of oppositional defective disorder, then it's because you've been listed by some councillor or MP as vexatious. And there's been occasions where certain people have had the white coats banging on the front door, supposedly with these orders where there's section orders.
Yeah,
it's been signed in your absence by a doctor, and at that stage of the game, that these people have had to invoke, and because you're allowed to within so many hours to invoke an independent psychological assessment. And you try getting a fucking appointment with a psychiatrist within 36 hours or something like that. It's very hard work.
Is that political prison? Yeah. Like political imprisonment?
That's right, yeah. So if this oppositional defective disorder is a fucking European diagnosis as well, there's going to be a whole gang of us sitting talking to each other.
Yeah. There's going to be plenty of getting lots of it.
Yeah.
There's something I heard the other day, right, about this mental, like this ever-growing, number of mental illnesses. Was it only takes 3 in this country anyway. It only takes 3 psychiatrists to see a new disorder and to agree with each other that this is a new disorder. They don't need any sort of empirical proof or evidence. They don't need to have done reports. It just takes 3 psychiatrists to agree that they've seen the same symptoms in three different patients, and then it becomes an illness then that other psychiatrists can then use. It goes on the list then.
They
And
use it.
on the list, other psychiatrists are going to go, oh yeah, look, my patient's got that.
They use it quite often when they lock up whistleblowers, don't they? They just say that no, there's something wrong with them mentally, and they lock them up, and that's it. But under this particular diagnosis, oppositional defective disorder, I'm sure that's the right terminology for it. You come under MAPA, and you could end up spending a corrective 3-month holiday in a fixated threat assessment centre.
Oh my God, and I bet that wouldn't be fun.
No, because it means diversity training and regular injections of some fucking mind-boggling drug that's not going to do you any good.
Probably some experimental drug they're bloody working on.
Either way, they're going to pump your arm full of chemicals enough to mess you up for mess your health up and stuff for a few years. Either way.
Well, it's just another way that the system have got one of in their array in their arsenal of being able to incarcerate you in one way or another for bullshit.
So, the next question I've got to ask then is if I mean, I'm not in the position because I'm a carer. I don't pay income tax. If I go to the shop and stuff's got VAT on it, it's stopped at source, so I can't do anything about that. We don't pay council tax, so I can't do anything about that. So it's not really going to affect me in that sense. All I can do is, like, when the polling registration form comes through, I mean, me and my missus have already agreed that that's getting no, don't support paedophiles, return to sender. And that's getting written on it. That's going back. We can oppose that way, and any other way that we can oppose by not joining in this democratic system that is not a democratic system.
Are you on about your voting registration form?
Yeah, stick it. I'm writing on it. Return to sender. We do not support paedophilia. We do not support institutional paedophilia.
That wind me up so much. Then voter registration forms. I mean, like, it's addressed to the occupier for a start, so they don't know who you are yet. It's basically a fishing expedition. And
well, because we've registered before, we know we'll get one with our names and addresses on.
Okay.
And I've already been told by somebody from We Are Change, if they send you another one, just put on it, what is it? What is it to put on it? Oh yeah, not recognised, deceased.
Yeah.
Addressee deceased and not recognised. Because basically they're writing to your straw man your title. So in actual fact, as a corporate entity, you're a dead entity anyway. So you're not telling them any lies. And for you to actually tell the truth and admit to being a human, then you've fallen into their trap anyway. So you can quite legitimately write on your voting registration document, addressee deceased if it's got your name on it. Tell them you're dead. You're not lying. As a corporate entity, you are.
Well, I'll tell you what winds me up most about them is you'll open it up, and it'll say, we need to register you to vote. Your vote's important to us. I think that's the exact phrase. Your vote's important to us. And you carry on, you read, okay, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And then you get to the bottom. Oh, yeah, by the way, if you don't register, you could get hit with £1,000 fine. It's like, oh, hold on. You care about my vote that much that you're threatening to fine me? Oh, that gets me here. That's really good of you.
That can't work because, I can't quote the law at the moment, but there's an Act of Parliament out there that says without you actually going for a trial or having a day in court, then no one is allowed to put any fixed penalty against you at all. So,
all fines and whatever. I know what you're on about. Yeah.
So,
it doesn't stop them though, does it? It doesn't stop the councils issuing PCNs on your car. And
Oh well,
your council tax.
where it says on that, I mean, basically, when you get that speeding ticket, all you do is write on it, "Thank you for your invitation, but no thanks," and that's all you need to write on it. Because basically, in legalese, that's an invitation for you to own up to the fact that you owe them some money.
Yeah.
And as a human being, you don't owe fuck all. So you just write on it, "Thanks, but no thanks. I decline your invitation," and put it in an envelope, send it in back. They can't do nothing, man.
Well, a couple of times in the past, they've said, "Oh, we've caught your registration speeding at this place at this time," and I've said, "Oh well, I can prove I was in a different county." So you know, either you've read the reg number wrong, or someone's got my reg number and they've cloned it. But either way, it wasn't me.
There's an easier way than that, Huxley. All you have to do is acknowledge that you were the driver, but don't sign the document.
Don't sign it. I saw this the other day. Yeah.
There's no obligation to sign it, so you own up to being the driver and send it back.
And because you haven't signed it, it's not admissible in court, is it?
No points, no fine.
And that was from 1992, I think.
Mm.
And I remember reading the article, and the copy there said, "Oh, I'm surprised people haven't jumped all over this."
Yeah, the police authority have even said we're amazed that it took the public so long to twig onto it.
Yeah.
But now they have. It's the biggest loophole on the planet. So you know, look for that one to be closed.
It's a good one, mate. That is a very, very good one. I gotta say, I can't wait to try that out. To be honest. Well, yeah. I say I can't wait. You know what I mean. Well, no one wants this shit, do they? None of us fucking like it.
No. And I think most of them out there in the chat box already know the no contract return to sender trick. Well, it's not a trick. It's if you haven't got a contract with them, return it to the sender. It's nothing to do with you, is it?
And I saw one today, another speed camera parked up. And yeah, Sam, I'll advise everyone with a car to do this if you don't already do it. Once you've gone past the speed camera, flash everyone coming the other way, let them know that one of those cunts is parked round the corner. And a lot of people will thank you for it.
Or if it's a wagon, just put your thumb down, that means slow down to a wagon driver.
Nice.
Let them know that there's a speed camera there.
Well, I did it, like I was doing it today, flashing them, and a few the wagon drivers and a couple of van drivers like waved and thanked me, so I think they knew what I was getting at.
If you flash them and put your thumb down to a wagon driver, they know there's a speed trap or police.
Yeah. Alright, Sam. I know, like, when it's happened to me in the past and I've been going in the opposite direction and someone's flashed me and I've thought, oh, fucking hell, why they're flashing? I've slowed down and there's been a van and I've been like, yeah, nice one, man.
Tracy Pinfold's put in the chat box. ODD has been around for years, but it has been related to disobedient children mostly.
ODD?
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. That, oppositional defective disorder.
Well, what's the symptoms are? What's meant to happen if you've got that?
Oh, I don't know. You have to ask Tracy on that one. The symptoms are that you wear tinfoil, you watch the UK column, and you don't watch the news.
It's all bollocks. I watch the news less and less now, and because when I watch it, it winds me up more and more. The more time goes, well, you know what I mean.
Well, now it's like I've got to the stage with the news and the Daily Politics show on BBC Two, where like it's more like stand-up comedy now. It's absolutely. And you know, it would have more credibility if they had people from the street who. I'm not saying me. I'm not saying any of us here, but like if there are people from the street who knew a bit about what's going on in Parliament and had a brain in their head, and they could go and sit there and hold an argument with these political panels on these things. It would bring them back down to earth. Yeah, I mean, because when they get carried away talking about, you know, well, we think the British public heard this, that, and the other. You know, for instance, the other day when they were talking about the confidence of the public in politicians and that trust is at an all-time low. You know, why didn't they have somebody picked out of alternative media or someone who'd got a voice enough through social media or whatever to be able to sort of join that panel and bring those politicians down to earth and say, look, we don't trust you because you're all tea leaves because of the expenses scandal. We don't trust you because half of you are covering up for institutional. You know, all this stuff needs to be said, but it never is.
They're all in the pay of the banks and in the pockets of the corporations, man.
I mean,
That's who they work for, not the public.
A couple of years ago, I used to take I used to take my radio to, you know, because I was working. Well, I was on the back end of what bit of work was left. But whenever I did a job, I used to take my radio to work and listen to the local radio, BBC Radio Nottingham, and and I got my phone outside of me, and if I heard them, like on 2 occasions they had fracking debates, and I'd already researched the fracking and knew the percentage of nasty shit in the water and how many gallons were going down, how many holes there were, and where they were proposing it, because I've been watching the fracking nightmare on UK Column. Yeah. And the first time I went on, I managed to get somewhere to pass over some information for people to think about, but really didn't get into the conversation enough from their point of view for me to want to stay on air long enough to push it anymore, because they were looking for people who really didn't know what the subject was about.
Right, okay.
And then the second fracking debate they had, I rang up again, and this was weeks and weeks later, but I rang up again, and because I knew what I knew and they knew what I knew, I managed to get 30 seconds on the end of the discussion after they'd been talking about it for half an hour, and they'd had all sorts of people ring up, but not one of them knew actually what anything was happening in the fracking world, and I've been keeping an eye on it. But they held me right till the end of the conversation, and they let me come on for 30 seconds and cut me off. I was about 2 sentences or 3 sentences in, and I just got cut off.
Bastards.
Yeah, and I also... They were talking, you know, they got into a discussion about the economy one day, and I rang them up, and I was on there for just over 5 minutes discussing the Bradbury Pound live on BBC.
Wow, fucking hell!
I know, man. I know. I was like thinking, wow, I can't believe it. And I was doing it well because the book was fresh in my mind, you know, and I was full of all the facts and the figures, and like going, you know, why can't we do this? Why can't we build factories for people to work in on money that's raised on the value of the country? Why do we have to keep selling off what taxpayers have already bought just to keep the politicians happy and the corporations?
Why do we have to keep taking on never-ending spirals of debt?
And at the end of it, it goes, well, there's an interesting point of view there. Nothing ever said about. They promised me that they were going to research the Bradbury Pound, and they were going to ring me up and invite me to have another discussion at a later time with a different presenter who's into politics and economics, and they were going to let me be included in the conversation. Nothing. I tried on 5 Live on fracking. I managed to get one question in on one occasion, and then, you know, I think your name gets put on a blacklist. I seriously do. And I managed to say a little bit on 5 Live, something about fracking after question time on BBC.
Well, the thing is, if we want to get information about fracking, I mean, in America, the data already exists. It's already there, you know.
Yeah.
They've done
but it's not counted.
They've got more gas than they know what to fucking do with.
Yeah, because of the, I think it's called the Halliburton loophole. Because Halliburton, owned by Dick Cheney, recognised the fact that if what they suspected from their research was going to happen to the water courses and stuff like that, and the gas escaping through the ground, they knew that there's going to be 1 or 2 court actions against them. So Dick Cheney put a rider through to say that any of the oil and gas explorers that do it through fracking inland
That's
in
right.
internal America are exempt from reporting any contamination.
Ask them they know what to fucking do with.
Sorry,
Yeah, because
hold
the
sorry.
Hold on, say that again, Kendo. I missed that. What did you say at the end? The bought. Dick Cheney did what? He bought out.
he put a rider into the American, you know, what Senate, whatever it is. It was a rider in the policy on fracking.
What's that mean? What's a rider?
Well, because of his position in there, he got a clause in that fracking bill that went through America to say that, you know, before we even do this, you know, we need this stuff that bad that we're not going to bring any stuff down on the oil and gas companies. So the rider was put in to prevent him from recording or even taking responsibility for contamination of the land or the environment in any
And
way.
what did that push the responsibility onto the local authority, or did it just like sort of push it nowhere?
It just made it so none of the oil and gas companies, if they fucked up a watercourse, a river, or contaminated the land, no one could take them to court for any compensation because they just weren't guilty of bugger all.
Shit, yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah. You know, so no one's been able to take them to court. Yet there is now a file online, and everyone who's been able to substantiate that the contamination that they've got around them is since the fracking started. And I looked about 2-3 months ago. There was 2,500 affidavits on there from various people in the American, you know, like Texas and the places where they're doing it, Colorado, Pennsylvania. And I mean, look what happened in, is it Louisiana? There's a sinkhole there, a huge sinkhole, and part of the Mississippi's run into it. Yeah, oh no, not the Mississippi. It's the in the Everglades. You know, half the Everglades is drained into a sinkhole that they've created. And there's all sorts of stuff that's going on in America from fracking. There's a huge crack.
We've only got to look at what's happened there, and you know, what I don't get, like, you've got the councils here that have given the go-ahead for exploratory drilling, yeah, just to see if it's viable, and it's like, well, hold on, you're not going to do it, no, even if it is viable, no, you know what I mean?
It gets deeper than that because the government has given the local councils permission to dabble in energy providing. You know how they said that they were going to get more energy providers?
Oh, Jesus, they meant the council.
They meant the councils. Oh, our local council is about to become an energy provider.
Oh, Jesus, don't say that, man. That's awful.
And we know that if the shale gas industry kicks off in Nottinghamshire, Nottinghamshire will be paying the price for people in Nottingham so they can keep their fires on in winter. But you know, the people in Nottinghamshire will be paying the price if they import the shale gas to Nottingham and sell it through the council at a better rate.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's like they've perfected the whole system of energy supply. It's like a lesson in greed, isn't it? That's all it is. It's an exercise in getting as much money as you can and power, basically, and it's like they've had so many years at doing it now. It's like they've perfected it. They've got it down to a fucking T.
Yeah, but morally it means that I'm going to be getting warm off somebody's contamination and somebody's watercourse getting fucked up sort of 20 miles away, and also, you know, anybody like me who took the trouble to buy the council house and finding out that because they can't get home bricks and mortar insurance anymore, the value of the property is reducing greatly by the day.
Why can't you get insurance?
Because insurance companies won't insure your bricks and mortar if there's a fracking operation going on within.
Because of the fracking.
How many kilometres? Yeah, because you know, they can go under your property sort of 30,000, between 3 and 30,000 feet below.
Yeah,
it could probably cause an earthquake.
And
Texas, 93 seismic events in the last few years since there's been fracking.
We've had one here. We've had one in this country from the.
We've had two in the Fire Peninsula, yeah, Blackpool.
It's been blamed on the fracking, yeah.
Yeah, directly caused from the fracking.
Fucking unbelievable, man.
If you look at the housing market in Blackpool, it's not uncommon knowledge. The housing market in Blackpool has nosedived. You can't sell your property in Blackpool for loving the money.
Really?
They're fracking offshore, aren't they?
Mm.
On Blackpool front, they're fracking. No, they've been doing it for donkey's years now, haven't they? I remember when it went up me, because I'm not in Blackpool, me, for...
They said to me that fracking had been going on in Nottinghamshire for 20 years, and I've always been aware that on the A52, as you go out to Grantham from Nottingham, there's some little establishments there. They've got oil pumps on, but they're low pressure fracking complexes. They're not high pressure fracking like these.
Yeah.
And they're using pure water and sand. This lot are mixing 5% of all the frack water, apart from having sand put in it. 5% of it is toxic chemicals.
Yeah, I know.
And people think 5% isn't a lot, man. 5%.
Well,
I mean, fucking hell, 5%. If
5%.
you think about a drink, yeah. If you put 5% squash in there, you're gonna. It's not just like you're gonna taste that. It's not gonna be a strong squash drink. You know what I mean? But
well, get your head round this.
you're gonna be there. You're gonna taste it.
Each hole takes approximately 40,000 gallons of this mix, this slurry that they put in, right? So 5% of 40,000 gallons is 5,000 gallons of, sorry, 5% of it is
50,000 gallons,
it's about between let's say it's 5,000 gallons. Well, for every wellhead, there's 8 holes, so 5, 8, that's 40,000 gallons. That's a tanker full of toxic chemicals are going in every 8 holes, and all these, you know, like the size of my kitchen, they can drill 8 holes and send them out in all sorts of directions.
And that's per hole, is it?
And that per wellhead, there's 40,000 gallons of toxic chemicals that they can't 100% recover back from down the hole, and that they do recover is water that they can't treat it, because some of it, like it's been proposed that the Halliburton method be used in some of these fracking processes, and the Halliburton method are using a liquid form of depleted uranium. What are you doing? They're chucking acid, they're chucking acetone, they're chucking all, and some of the chemicals they're chucking down there, there's a name for them. It'll come to my mind.
It's all in the name of greed.
They're carcinogenic and they attack your nervous system. You know, so they'll break your body down and break your organs down. So if that lot seeps into a water course, I mean, when they did Blackpool, I think it was 280,000 gallons of toxic waste fluid was tipped into the Manchester Ship Canal, and it did shitloads of damage, and they had no choice but to pump it into the Manchester Ship Canal because the sewage treatment farm where it had been delivered couldn't handle it. It's got no equipment there to handle the toxicity of the crap that they were being delivered. So they had to dilute it into the Manchester Ship Canal, and it caused all sorts of havoc there, I believe.
But the worst thing is we don't even have to rely on this shit anymore. I know I said it the other day, but we can now split water using the sun, and it's the same. It costs the same as bloody getting fossil fuels out the ground, but you don't have to have all the pollution, and it uses water and gives off water. And you couldn't have a better renewable system, you know what I mean? All we'd have to do is adapt our stuff to run on hydrogen.
Yeah.
But that's never going to happen. That won't happen until every last drop of oil and every last fucking cubic centimetre of gas has gone.
They can use a superheated steam system it's similar to a process used in a steam lamps, and what happens, the steam's that hot that it breaks down the molecules of what's in the contaminated stuff.
Oh, are you on about those mirrors in the desert that they've got concentrated into one sort of bit?
I don't know where I know you can buy a steam if you're in the right industry in America, you can buy steam lamps, and they use these steam lamps to return stuff back to what it was before it was. Like if it's
Okay.
contaminated, all the molecules separate, then all the bad bits separate from the water, and you end up with clean water again.
Yeah.
There's a firm in Belgium proposing to use this technique to decontaminate contaminated nuclear waste water.
Oh,
Shit.
But yeah, it's some.
But
no one's investing in it in this country, are they? They're not.
That's it. You're not going to see them now. It's not in the interest, is it? It's not. I mean, like for example, the solar powered electrolysis. Imagine if that was, pushed on a wide scale. How many people would lose money and power? The oil industry had be gone. The gas industry had be gone.
Yeah.
It's just never going to happen,
It's I'm certain that if you look at the fracking industry, you see, for anyone, take this a stage further, then for anyone in this country who thinks about, if you've ever watched the UK column, there's been loads of people ring their MPs about this, that, and the other. I mean, my missus alone has rung our local MP about 6 times in the last 2 years, asking him about, what you're going to do about all these chemtrails, and all we get is blankety blank, blankety blank. And all over the country, all these various MPs and all these hundreds of thousands of people who have been ringing their MPs have been getting blankety blank, blankety blank. What's that telling you? It's a dictatorship. When people moan about the most obvious stuff, when people don't get any answer from those who govern us, then basically we're in a bloody dictatorship.
Yeah.
Can't look at it any other way. When they're so arrogant that they think we're idiots, then basically they're the idiots. So yeah, it's the way it's going, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been like that for years, though, hasn't it? As well, it's actually always said we've allowed it to get to this position as well, though, haven't we?
Mm.
Well, yeah, we are partly responsible. I mean, I say, yeah, well, yeah, because I mean, I said this the other day, isn't it? This government doesn't speak for me. You know what I mean? It's not representative of me or my views in any way, and yet me being a citizen of this country, not through choice, but I'm partially responsible. I think we all are.
Mm-hmm.
But they are more than partially responsible for making us partially responsible. because if they commit a crime, for instance, like William Hague, I've said it before, William Hague and one or two others doing secret deals to get arms and weapons and training out to Jordan, where they're training what potentially is ISIS is whoever is. They have created that situation, but by doing that to the rest of the world, they have implicated us in their guilt, as though we condone what they're doing, and I don't. I've never, because we never asked. You see, that's the other thing with the fracking. We never got asked. I forget the bill. It was something. It was the one where they were talking about the one of the clauses was common land, how they could use a bit of common land now and then to do a bit of developing for council houses and this, that and the other. There was all sorts of things going through on this bill. But the one clause they never talked about was clause 24. And clause 24 was the fracking bit. And they never spoke about it. I think one MP mentioned it and 2 Lords when it went through the Lords, because I've got the transcript of the thing there. But one of the Lords, I think it was Baroness Parminter, suggested that David Cameron needed a mandate from the people to do this because we're not the size of Colorado. We've got You know, we're 20 times smaller than Colorado, and where they're doing it in Colorado, you know, your neighbour might be 15, 20, 30, probably 100 miles down the road. Mine's fucking 10, what? Mine's are, you know, 2 brick thicknesses away.
Well, they're always telling us we're overpopulated anyway, aren't they?
That's what I say. There's another agenda at play then, isn't there? You know, if you're not listening to science, if you're not listening to, and if you look at the conflict of interests with regard to fracking, Lord, is it Brown, who's on he's on the cabinet as an advisor to business ethics.
Oh, what?
Lord Brown, ex-leader of BP, ex-CEO of BP, is on the cabinet, on David Cameron's cabinet as advisor. He's a cabinet advisor to business ethics.
Oh my God.
Yeah, see my eyeballs rage.
It's like getting the fox to guard the bloody chickens, isn't it?
Lord Brown is also he's also chairman of the board on one of the fracking companies in South Wales. Bugger if I can remember the name of them. It's not iGas. It's Quadrilla. Quadrilla. I think he's the CEO of fucking Quadrilla.
Fucking hell.
So and he's the one that's saying to Cameron, go for it. And like, since when has Lord Brown ever, you know, if you think all the time he was with BP, whenever BP ever had any business ethic in the way they leave contamination around some of their sites?
You're always cleaning up behind the house. Literally.
Another level of treason. It's a conflict of interest. They're ignoring it because it has been raised. You know, this stuff has been raised to people who know that we know that there's conflict of interest going on inside Parliament, inside the cabinet, and they're still pushing this fracking thing when they've been advised through the poxy little bit that they've talked about it in Parliament. So it's been slipped through the back door by stealth, and they haven't got a mandate for it. And so far, the Liberals, the Labour, the Cons, and the UKIP are all pro-fracking. So there you are. There's a good idea who to vote for in the next election.
The thing is, though, Kendo, you say they don't listen. Like you say, you know, we haven't had a referendum or anything on it. Even when the people have voiced their opinion, like I think of the Iraq War, and what, 2 million people went down there, didn't they, and said, no, we don't want this. And, you know, they'll still do whatever they fucking want at the end of the day. We need to fucking tell them stronger. That's what we need to fucking do.
But the only way you're going to hit them in that way is by hitting them in the pocket, like the Railway Men's Union or the underground workers did in London. They had a strike, and everybody. It affected people personally. Then when it affects them personally, they'll sit and listen. But I don't know whether they listened to that man's argument because he was a dead man a few weeks later.
That's why I think it'll take a few more years and all, like similar things like Million Mass March and things like that. But using when it's big enough, the Million Mass March to turn it on.
If
things.
If 1 million people suddenly turn around to their local council and said, because of the tyranny that's going on, you ain't getting no council tax this month, or from now on, and that takes a lot of courage, because you know the shit that the councils are going to bring down on your head if you don't pay your council tax. But
you're right though, mate. It takes everyone to do it at once. If that happened, things would fucking change.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you can't look how long it took. You know when those guys did the barricade at the fuel depots. Yeah. And there were all those queues at the petrol stations. You know, Tony Blair soon made some fucking moves, man.
I was going to say that he changed the legislation, didn't the sneaky bastard, after that? So you couldn't do it or something? I know he did something.
So it's for us to organise ourselves into a form of awareness where we've got the courage to deny them of something. You know, we've all got to share this knowledge in some kind of way. It means that they're going to be denied of something, and we've all got the courage to stand up to the shit that's going to hit the fan when we deny them of that particular thing. And we've all got the same knowledge, and we've all got the right level of courage, and we say, right, this is the way that then we're going to protest, and we're going to see it through.
I think something like that's got to be coming now. I mean, I think the response group is like indicative of how people are losing the fear.
The only way you can lose fear is by some form of education, because fear can be broken down. You know, not with knowledge you can conquer fear.
Yeah.
You know, like for instance, the debt collectors and Tony Meehan. You know, he's given. I'm thinking thousands and thousands of people the confidence to turn around to these shysters and say, "Fuck off! Where's your proof of claim?"
Well, I'll tell you what. There was a lot of YouTube videos mainly of debt collection agents and TV license inspectors, and it was pretty much me watching them to start with. It made me go, "Fuck me."
For instance, how many? If we had I don't know whether it takes a petition, whether there's a petition been organised to represent the whole of the people in terms of lawful rebellion, or what? And how many signatures you...
Not you, Kendo, sorry, I thought Dean was saying something. Carry on, I can hear you. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, and it depends on how many signatures you can get together within the next 4 to 5 weeks. Because the British Constitution Group aren't doing anything until November the 1st. They're having a seminar on November the 1st.
It's too late.
You know, it's already happened then.
Yeah.
That's why I put several posts up last night. If you get a chance to watch them, there's one on Christopher Story doing a lecture on the corruption and the fact that the EU haven't done the books for I think it was 17 years at the time when he did it. It links into a whole set of lectures that he did. Also, if you get onto the Christopher Story website, there's a link there to the e-book called the EU Collective. And if you're into your research and you want to know about Europe, there's some alarming stuff. Right at the beginning of the book, there's some stuff that came straight from KGB headquarters, and it's about the way that in Marxism and communism is how you break society down by subverting it.
Okay, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, let me just, I don't know if I've got time to do this, check all my downloads. Show all downloads. I downloaded it again. I've got it on my old computer, but
the fastest way to undermine any society is through its music.
Do it to music.
I think that was Plato who said that. Or Aristotle, one of the two.
Right. Where are we? But it's called the EU Collective anyway, and it's by Christopher Story. And if I could find the bugger, because I downloaded the book as a PDF, and I'm going through the history and I can't find it at the moment. But you can download it as a PDF. The EU Collective.
Christopher Story.
Christopher Story, yeah.
Is that like S-T-O-R-R-E-Y?
No, S-T-O-R-Y.
S-T-O, okay.
Yeah, and it's called the EU Collective, and it comes in the form of a PDF, and you can scroll down about half a dozen pages after the introduction, and there's this KGB document about subversion and how to break down society. And anyone who looks at that will say to themselves, that's what's going on here, man. And you can see it on so many levels, how it works.
Cool. I found him, Christopher Story, man. I'll check this out. It looks very interesting.
I read the book about 18 months ago, and I read into it, and I knew about this November the 1st because it mentions it in the book somewhere, and but he goes into the fact that it describes what collectivism is all about and the connections and where it comes through Marxism and all that jazz. It's mental, and collectivism is what we've talked about in the past, and it's this black hole of politics. Once you're in it, you're swallowed by it, and your whole life is consumed by it, and you end up and you find out that it's a harsh dictatorship. You know, it is definitely a dictatorship, but a particularly harsh one. And when you think, you know, you're guilty until proven otherwise, that's the harshness of it.
I'll just put that link in there for the petition for that unlawful rebellion.
Also, there is a petition.
Yeah. There's a...
And it was Lenin who said that, by the way, not Aristotle or Plato.
Who said what?
The quickest way to undermine any society is through its music.
One thing Lenin did say was, what you tell them to the face is one thing, and what you say behind the backs, it doesn't matter.
Is a what, sorry?
What you tell them to the face is one thing, but what you say about them behind their backs and what you do is, it doesn't matter. So you can't. Lenin made it official for Marxists, communists, or whatever. He made it official so that, you know, if you just want to lie to your public to get their attention and get their vote, do it.
Yeah.
If it takes lying, do it if that's what it takes, because it's all about changing the system to suit the desires and needs and ideology of the Marxist or communist or collectivist mind, because it's all the same. Only this time, it's not going to be any Politburo. It's going to be not your politicians, because at the moment you can go and moan to your local MP and think, well, you know, there's a chance that he might go and say something to other MPs, and they might talk about it in the backbenches and make a bit of a movement out of it. And you know that if you're talking to a Labour MP, for instance, you're going, so many MPs may get that information. But if it's a European representative, you've got to realise that it's all diluted. It's what say does he have on his committee, and if that committee thinks it's important enough, does it go up to the next level of a committee, and then does it go to the Executive Council, and do they raise it in the whole Parliament? And you've got to realise whoever's representing you is representing not just one vote, he's representing millions of bloody votes, you know, from all sorts of areas, and it's not democracy, it's diluted democracy.
Yeah.
with a, well, basically it's communism, but with a corporate Politburo. Everything's for the corporation.
Yeah.
You know, that's the nasty twist in the tail, that the organisers at the top are fucking Nazis.
It's been a steady expansion, hasn't it, since, well, I don't know, what, about the 40s, I reckon, of corporatism, and it's grown and grown and grown, and now it just pervades everything.
Yeah. And then you get
The business.
you know, you get these wankers living through political Munchausen syndrome, thinking that they're all these sort of characters, you know, and they live in their fantasies out. You know, look at Tony Blair. He goes from one psychopathic fantasy to the next. 1 minute he's a mass murderer, the next minute he's a fucking £1 million a night man.
Peace envoy. He's a peace envoy.
Peace envoy.
Don't forget Tony Blair's the Tony Blair Faith Foundation. Let's not forget that. I've got to say, I feel bad now. I said hello to Tony in the chat room, and hello to Lisa, and Blazing, hello, and James. How's it going?
But I would like the chat box, for instance. I would like to know if you guys out there have gleaned any information that's useful to you about what's happening on November the 1st? Are you, when you came on here earlier on, and there was a thought of we're going to talk about a particular subject, and we went into this European bullshit. Are you lot now more aware than you were sort of 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago? Is it going to be helpful to you? That's what I want to know.
Well, I've definitely learned something today. Yes.
Well, we've all got to wise up rapid.
What can we do about it? That's the thing. I mean, that petition, I've just had a look at that petition that you're on about, and it's got 8,855 votes, and it needs 9,000.
Well, let's do it then. Let's fucking go for it, boys. Let's get it up to over the 9,000, because I'm going to go on that link right now.
It's tantalisingly close. 8,851, yeah, of 9,000. So it needs another, 149 signatures?
Well, yeah. First name, Ken. K-E-N.
Yeah, come on, let's all do it.
T-A-Y-L-O-R. Email, not a problem.
First name, Huxley. Surname, P.
Go, man.
No, man, it's a bit disingenuous, isn't it, signing a petition as Huxley Pig?
Well, I'm doing it.
Awesome. I think at the end of the day, right, whether
Click sign. Bang.
I think at the end of the day, right, whether it's Europe or Westminster in control, neither of them are the desired solution. You know what I mean? We don't want either, really. I mean, I know it is worse to have it centralised in Europe, but you know what I mean? Neither of them are acceptable.
Mm.
Have you signed it, Alex?
No, I haven't. Have you?
I'm debating.
You're debating?
Yeah.
I've done it.
You've done it.
I've done it. Done it while we've been on air. Fuck it.
Colin, is this not just another, legitimisation of the whole fucking policy?
No, because this is a group of people who want a Baron to invoke Article 61.
Oh, is that specifically what this petition is trying to get done, yeah?
Mm.
Did you ever I know they've misspelt it. That's supposed to be withdrawal of the UK from the EU using Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty by November 2014. With effect immediately, the undersigned require the coalition government to implement Clause 50 of the European Union prior to the 1st of November. Why is this important? There are 43 aspects of the running a country or membership of the EU that will be voted on using QMV from the 1st of November 2014. These areas of power will no longer reside in Westminster, but instead be in Brussels. Quantitative majority voting. No individual country of 28 members will have a veto in these matters. Thus, a positive vote or any of the 43 areas can be imposed on any individual country, even against the wishes of its sovereign parliament. No law can be enacted that has any bearing on any of the 43 aspects of government without approval of the EU majority voting, other members voting for it. We could be asked to drive on the right, and nothing we could do about it. But that is a trivial matter compared to what could be pushed our way against the national interests.
Well, I've signed it. Bugger it.
I've signed it. I did it.
Every little helps at this stage of the game.
We're now up to 8,857. So only another.
Actually, put the link to this under the feed.
What, to the petition?
So if anybody wants to go on and sign it, obviously in UK.
So what happens then, Kendo? We prod a Baron, right? And say, oh, Baron, oi, Baron. And what happens then?
He has to go. Well, four of them have to go. Well, they have to go to the other 20 or the 21 barons, and because of that situation, because the government's not going to do anything about it. If they let it in, then Article 61 can be brought into bear. And as it said in Article 61, every time it's been used, it's been successful. No one's ever been able to argue against it because it's law, custom that's been built into our custom and our rights as English sovereigns.
Okay, so it's a legitimate instrument to use. It's just whether they choose to acknowledge it or not.
Yeah, there's another post I put up. People might find it a bit boring, but it's one that was done by the British Constitution Group, and it's talking about the British Constitution, and you'll see why in there. That guy explains all the narrative wrapped around it, and he's a solicitor, that guy, but he's doing common law now. No, he says why. He gives you all the reasons why it's irrefutable, and the most of the reasons are the ones I've listed. Is because it's historical. It's been part of our history for over 700 years, and because it's been part of our history for over 700 years, it's part of our way and custom, and no one is entitled to take them away from you if they're historical. And if your law's wrapped around it, then that's historical too, and that's irrefutable. Because that's the custom and law of this country.
But the rather broad umbrella of culture falls under the new European areas of control now, or will do soon.
Yeah, and if we lose this particular battle, then you might as well kiss goodbye to everything, because you what 10, 15. Because what will happen? Because of the breakup of the Union, all I can see is like Westminster will be like the regional parliament for London, like the Welsh Assembly will be the local assembly for the Welsh, and there'll be an assembly in the Midlands, possibly in Birmingham, your way, Hawks. There'll be an assembly in the main hub of Yorkshire. There'll be an assembly in Lancashire, and and all these assemblies will be answerable to Europe. They're not going to be answerable to Westminster, because Westminster will be reduced in power to an assembly.
Yeah, just another localised.
And if you look at the underlying factors of what's going on in London, I don't know whether anyone's seen that news of the housing estates that's been demolished, and compulsory purchase orders put on people purposely to build properties worth 3 or 4 times more than the ones that's already on the land.
Oh, what? Seriously? That's what they're doing? Right. One of my pet hates are these fucking compulsory purchase orders. They are the most insidious, vile things ever. And what they're doing, they're knocking the houses that are down there just to build new houses.
And on average, if you say your property's worth, and it's just a council house, let's say it's worth 330,000 on average, again about 110k, just enough to buy. Just
a council house.
Well, yeah.
Seriously, where do you live, man?
Back in '85, you could buy a council house in Nottingham for £7,000, right? For £7,000. The same size council house in London at that time was 70 grand. Because we were working in London talking to taxi drivers, and they're all on about, no, I'm fucking selling my house, mate, moving up north, innit? And, I'll buy myself another house, get a bleeding mansion for about 20 grand, mate. And off they went. And up our way, if you spent 20 grand on a mansion in them days, you were getting some 6-bedroom, 3 en suites, detached mansion somewhere. you know, and they were in the days before it all went crazy, because between 85 and the 90s, if you remember, that's when the ripple that happened in London moved north, and all it created for these builders and developers and investors was millions upon millions of pounds worth of Mickey Mouse money.
That's all it is, isn't it?
Yeah, at the end of the boom, if you missed out at the end of the boom and you take no more than you could handle, you were the ones like me, you know. Come 1990, I had my house repossessed. And I was riding on the crest of a wave. Me and a mate had been looking round to buy or to get a plot of land and build a couple of houses on it, because we were going to have a go, you know, because we were both in the trade.
Yeah,
Got major connections, you know, we could get houses built for the cost of labour, you know. Yeah, and so too, he was an electrician, I was a painter. You know, normally if you go on building sites in them days, most of the clerks of works who were looking to get a building estate finished were like fully time served, you know, ex-decorators, because they knew what places had to look like when they were going across to the public. So basically, you're keeping an eye on the joinery and the plastering, you know, everything. You're keeping an eye on it, because if you get, well, you know, I mean, I did. The last lot of new houses I did, there was a row of 5, and not the first house, that was done all right. The second house I went in, I had a row with the joiner, because the joinery was like, it was shit, man. You know, bad external cuts on Taurus skirting board, you know, and not bothered to put the cut right. So you've got a nice square corner, you know, where it's plasterboarded and plastered.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a nice square corner. But when it comes down to the skirting board, because he's made the cut a bit too long and he couldn't be asked to shave a bit off,
yeah,
one piece of skirting board's coming away from the wall.
I know what you mean.
Nothing to a quarter.
90 degrees anymore.
Yeah. So, and it's the skirting board that's out, not the wall. You know.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course, man.
And the second house I went to, and I found about 5 of these, and I kicked them all off. And I went down to the foreman joiner. I said, "You better go in that house. You haven't finished the joinery in there." He went, "What are you fucking on about, mate? I've just been round. It's all done." I said, "No, there's a load of external corners one sorting out on one or two of the, you know." And he went, "What?" I said, "Well, go and have a look." And he come around. He says, "You kick these fuckers off." And I goes, "Yeah, I know I have." I said, "If you think I'm going to make my work look fucking stupid because you lot can't do your job, you've got nothing coming."
That's the thing when you get a few trades conflicting at once, though, isn't it? You know what I mean?
You think, yeah. So if you think I'm such a bozo that I'm not going to fit, that I'm going to go and fill to cover up your incompetency in joinery, you got nothing coming, because all it does is make me look a twat as well for going on top of it and doing nothing about it.
Yeah.
So you know, I'm not taking that house on. I'm not moving in it until you've rectified all your faults and gone round. That's just because, like, you know, it's not just external corners on your skirting boards. I says there's 1 or 2 architraves that are looking a bit sick, you know, on your miters.
Architraves?
Yeah, on architrave.
Well,
but, you know,
they have a finishing foreman now, Kendo. He goes round after every trade, and it's up to standard for passing it on to the next trade.
Yeah. But in them days, mainly on building sites, you got the foreman was an ex-painter who'd come up in the ranks, sort of thing.
Well, what I was going to say about bloody CPOs, I mean, they're bad enough, aren't they, compulsory purchase orders? They're bad enough when it's like they want to put a motorway there or something, you know what I mean? It's bad enough then, but just to rip them down and build new bigger houses, that, I mean, come on.
When we were in Moscow, we were told by local Muscovites that the wealthy people of Moscow would prefer them not to be there, because as far as they're concerned, Moscow, although it's part of Russia, Moscow is its own country. And I think that's where London is trying, because, I mean, come on, let's look at it. Over the last 30 years, when have anybody in London ever cared about what went on? I mean, look what's happening in Liverpool.
Nobody, they don't care about the north of England, man.
No, look, northeast of England, northwest of England, you know, even in the Midlands, there's areas that's fucking totally devastated, man, after the pit shut. You know, even this estate where I live now, if you'd have been here in sort of the early to middle 60s, the majority of people living in these houses around me had been working in the local pits, and there were about 3 or 4 of them. And
Work that pit.
yeah.
It was the same where I grew up. Cannock and Hensford always used to be like a mining community.
I mean, the one at the bottom of the hill was called Babington Pit. And when you lived around here years ago, the slang, you know, if you're going out, I'm just nipping for a babbo, a Babington Pit, you know, shit. I just went for a babbo.
Is that what Northern Ireland?
You know, that's like local slang wrapped around local things. So Babington Pit.
Northern rhyming slang.
Well, it's like, well, it's not northern, is it? It's Midlands, Nottinghamese.
Midland rhyming slang. I've never heard of anything like that other than Cockney. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We've got like shortcuts for it isn't, is it? Or we say tint, is it?
G'day.
Tin. Like,
Oh.
I mean, I'm sure that one's stretched up north. It's Black Over Bill's Mothers. You know, when it's coming to rain, or you get people say around here, it was a bit black over Bill's Mothers. And you know, there's a dark cloud knocking around somewhere, it's going to piss it down. If somebody says that.
It's a new one on me, mate.
Yeah, it's a bit black over Bill's Mothers. Serious.
It's as black as a Bill's mother's.
No, it's a bit black over Bill's mum's.
Got ya. Okay, got ya.
Yeah, it's a bit black over Bill's Mothers. If somebody says that, it's going to rain.
I noticed Spaniard did a new video today.
Has he really? I follow that guy. He's good.
But yeah, he's a quality, isn't he? I like the Spaniard, man.
Yeah.
I've been reading about that. What's it? You know, reading through all what legislation or the. But I've just got absolutely knackered and I can't think straight.
Yeah, you've got to be. So I dived into it. It was well over a year ago, and started sussing it out. But you've got to start you've got to follow up your research by going somewhere where you find someone who can explain some of the terminology for you, because it gets a bit deep.
I just don't really understand it. I always do that. I pull lines out and Google it.
But I just hope that it's been let's hope it's been a learning experience for some folk, because if this lot comes off, then, you know, along with the breakup of the union, which, can you blame them? You know, this is another thing that I would really love to happen, is for it to blow back into Alex Salmond's face, and for the Scottish people to wise up to the Icelandic model, and say, right, yeah, we don't need to worry about currency, we'll make our own and fuck the bankers. And then perhaps the English people would take up enough courage from the Scots to turn around and say, look, you know, what's sauce for the goose, mate? It's good for us, you know. Let's get a piece of that.
Who was it that was saying? Did I hear on the radio or did I hear on a hangout somewhere that the banksters are already sort of preparing just in case Scotland get their independence, and they're telling them that they're going to need like their own central bank if they do break away.
Yeah.
They're already getting their oar in there nice and early, saying, you know, you're going to need your own central bank with your own fake currency, backed by the IMF.
Well, would it be backed by the European Bank? Which
No.
they'd want to be an annex of Europe, wouldn't they?
Well, that's another thing, isn't it? If they do get independence, are they going to? You know, it's just another. They're going to get the choice, aren't they? That's what I'm guessing. Anyway, I mean, they are only going to be ruled by another group of thugs. You know what I mean? Anyway, it's not it's not going to be true independence, but it's a step in the right direction, I think.
Well, I posed a question. I mean, I'd like, and I don't mean it in any malice kind of way. I've got nothing against any Scotsman because my name's Kenneth, and Kenneth was a king of Scotland, and so I've got nothing against Scottish people in any way, shape, or form. You know, there's no vexation, ill will, or any feeling in that way, shape, or form between me and them. But sometimes I think that if they go for this yes thing, and I said it last night, are they turkeys who are voting for Alex Salmond's Christmas? And, you know, surely you could think about what's gone on in Iceland and think to yourself, well, if it's done them a bloody world of good, and Scotland can't be much bigger or much smaller than Iceland, and it's the perfect place for you to adopt this and get total, proper freedom and independence away from all this left, right, fucking Jesuit, Protestant, whatever you. I don't know what the score is up there. I've always lived in the Midlands.
I've seen a lot of them talk about that kind of, about as hot Scottish and that.
Yeah. But from what I got out of Braveheart, Scotsmen want to be totally free. That's why they fucking poured themselves into the British Rifles. I can't remember the name of the battle now, but they know where it was. You know, look what happened to them there. You know, sold down the river.
Well, have you heard like the what the MPs have been saying? You know, I said like all three of them have gone running up to Scotland. They've abandoned. Big news, everyone! They've abandoned PM's question time tomorrow. Everyone's going up to Scotland to tell Scotland to stay in the Union, right? And
Culloden Mark II. That's the battle. Culloden. Right. Well, this tomorrow is Culloden Mark II, and they're going to come back with bloody noses this time.
That's the thing. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be hilarious. You know what I mean? I think it's going to be a bit of a landslide. I really do. I can't see them not grabbing it.
Well,
I'd be disappointed if they didn't, really.
You know, I just wish, you know, if you want, because what I want for nothing to do with me, but what I really want for the Scottish, if you want your freedom, I'm right behind you, mate, but go for it totally, because I really can't say that I trust Alex Salmond by the some of the looks on his faces tell me things that I see similar faces in Parliament, and you know, they use the same tactics, and he's still using this left-right paradigm bollocks. You know, there is no left-right paradigm. Just do what's right by the people, and if you're really serious about giving them freedom, then fucking give them freedom, man, because I'm right behind you.
Yeah.
Because if you've got it, I want some. If you get it right there, then I can have some.
Yeah, man. It could be like, good for us, couldn't it? Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I forgot. I think it was Cameron, maybe, or one of them came out with well, if they stay in the Union, we realise that things have got to change, and we plan putting a raft of legislation together and putting a rigid timetable in place so that, you know, we give Scotland more powers to do stuff. And it's like, well, giving them the right to issue their own fishing licences or whatever ain't going to come close. You know what I mean? And I really hope that everyone can see through it.
Well, I do, because I think it's. I would love for the Irish to be free. I would love for the Welsh above all. You know me and where I've been with sussing stuff out in the past. You know, above all, I wish the Welsh could have their true independence and be the people that they really want to be, because they've been stifled.
Well, I was going to say they've ended up with like a watered down version of what the MPs are proposing for Scotland there, haven't they?
Yeah.
It's got freedom, but not really.
But they're still part of this left-right paradigm crap, which is wrapped up with all the corruption and all the bullshit and all the corporate crap, the paedophilia, you know, the institutional paedophilia, institutional corruption. Oh, they're still in tow with basically what's coming out of London and the city of London.
I think really, if we want effective long-term change, I think we've got to chop the head off the fucking snake. And by that I mean the banks and the
Yeah.
way
That,
corporatism is so predatory.
yeah,
You know, I think that's the problem. It's the greed, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah. People have got to have the bottle to turn round to the taxman. Well, I don't know you do that if you're on the books. You know, how do you walk into your gaffer and say, "Don't dare stop any more tax out of my wages"? He
Apparently,
wouldn't have the bottle to do it.
No.
If you're working for a local council, they're certainly not going to knock your income tax on the head. So we've got to find a different way than income tax. And
on she on Facebook, she found one. It's another bank account that you can take into your company and tell them that's why you want your taxes going.
I know that's see if you don't spend the money and you have it put on one side, then you are sort of making arrangements, and that compounds your argument, and that makes you right. I think in those circumstances.
Apparently, it's like one big bank account where like Freeman put the taxes.
Yeah, yeah, that could work. Or even if you individually opened a bank account and said, look, every piece of my income tax now you pay it into there, it goes in there. You can keep the bank book because I don't want to spend it. It's to pay for my income tax if this all goes wrong. But at the end of the day, the taxman's not getting it until he's registered my, whatever between me and government. My disgust or my argument or my, whatever it is.
I think she's on YouTube as well. I can't remember. Oh, no.
Well, that's worth investigating. But there's got to be some way that we can. I mean, a general strike doesn't work because all they do is get the army out. Then, the firemen have tried it, and they got the army out. The miners tried it. They didn't get the army out, but they turned the police into the army and starved the buggers out. Everybody who's tried it that way has failed. But so it's got to be this Article 61. Whereas if you come out and petition for Article 61, then basically it's your duty to hinder the government in any way you can. In any way you can means no parking tickets, no fucking camera fines, no nothing, no council tax. That means like no nothing, doesn't it?
Well, definitely financial.
Mm.
You don't want to. You don't want to be giving. Well, this is the thing with council tax, isn't it? Well, it's the thing with every tax, but I think council tax is particularly insidious. The way they say that, it's for look. They give you a little leaflet every year. This is what this percentage goes on the fire. This percentage goes on the street lights. Blah blah. And it's not true, is it? It all goes to the government, and then it gets doled back out to the authorities as they see fit.
Mm.
It's a complete con. Of course it is.
And then you also the most biggest wind up, the one that gets me more than anything, is the fact that 25% of everything you give over on a monthly basis to council tax is propping their pension pots up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I don't know whether you're a self-employed man, Hugs.
Well, no.
Are you well, if you were, let's put it this way, I was self-employed for years, and there was no money left at the end of the month for a fucking private pension.
A pension? Crikey, forget about that. A pension? Yeah. What's that?
Yeah, but if your council tax is 110 quid a month, that's is that £27.50 a month that you, just on your own, could have been pumping into your own pension pot rather than this.
Well, how many pension pots have crashed as well? And people who've been paying into this stuff all their working lives end up with next to nothing.
Yeah.
And like when I used to work, right, that's the dream, isn't it? Telling your employer not to pay any tax to the government. Come out of the pay-as-you-earn system, yeah, just give my money to me. Yeah, that's perfect scenario. But as well as that, it's always pushed on you that you want to join the company pension. You know, that's always thrown at you. And every place I've ever worked at in the past, I've made sure that I've said, no, don't take any money and put it in that bloody pension. I want every penny I can get of my wages. Thank you very much. Because I mean, I might not even live that long.
Evening, James. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. Well,
How's it going, man? You alright?
Good, yeah.
I've just finished replying to you on WhatsApp as well, chat room. I don't want to run Skype while I'm on here.
Okay. Hooks beat you to it.
It drops my signal.
No.
You're
You're looking for a solution, I hear.
Wouldn't that be lovely?
No, it's not really a solution. What is my thought is if people are frightened to go into lawful rebellion, then it's only because of the fear factor. And if we can educate the fear factor out of them, your
answer happened in 2000 with the petrol strikes.
Yeah.
And if you can actually get people as well to go on strike at the same time, what's happening is government can only survive on taxation. That's how it survives.
Mm.
It pays its debt off, through taxation. In fact, all your taxes basically, it goes to pay debt, and what they do is they just borrow more money from the central bank in order for the wars and all the other stuff that they do. So they don't like it when people can't get to work, when people are not buying stuff from the stores, when people can't put gas in their car. Gas is a very high taxable item. 84 pence, I think, in England it is
it's ridiculously high.
It's tax. And what's VAT now? 20%?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So every time somebody buys anything from store, and normally now people go in a vehicle to the store. Well, if you've got no gas, if there's no gas at the gas station, and there's no gas at the gas, there's no gas at the gas station, nobody's got gas to put in their car because they're saving the gas because they want to get to work. And when you are working, if you can't get to work for days, let's say a week or 2 weeks, because you've not got no gas, then that's less tax that the government are getting off you because you didn't work. You only get taxed on the days that you work, right? The hours that you work.
Yeah.
When you're working for somebody, that is. If you're working for yourself, self-employed, then obviously. If you're working for yourself, then you don't have to send them the money. But if you work for somebody and your employer is sending the money, then that's the way of doing it.
I mean, if it's possible, I think the ideal situation is cut that out the loop. So just get it paid direct to you. I mean, that's the ideal. And like say, if you are self-employed, that you can do that. Or maybe not even using money at all. So working for exchanging services, if you see what I mean?
Yeah, bartering, or just I'll do this for you. You just do this for me.
And because then, how can you tax something like that? You can't tax that, can you?
No. But that's not. Let's put it this way: if we, as people, took on the mantle and said, right, we're going to stand outside the fuel depots and deny the lorries access to top up with fuel, and hope that they would join in with the argument. The first protest that was outside one of those fuel depots would end up with present-day situations like the fracking protest.
Well, they didn't unit
and move in and arrest everybody. And
they didn't do it that way, though, did they, Ken? They didn't organise it that way to start with.
No.
What they did is they got together and they drove down all the major motorways in the UK.
Yes, dead slow.
Yeah, until it got to a point where they got enough people behind them, and then, then that's what they did. They went to start picketing the, somebody had the notion, hey, wait a minute, we'll carry on doing this, but what we'll do is we'll get the tanker drivers that deliver the gas, the petrol, to the petrol stations, the gas stations, to not deliver that. And I believe at one point they were going to try and bring the military in to drive the tankers. But then they saw that it might be not too good an idea because you're just going to get people driving slow in front of them.
Yeah.
If you've got like there's three main lanes on a major highway, like on the M1, M25, whatever. And if you've got 3 cars abreast and 5 cars deep, even if they pull the front row of cars off to one side, and the rest of them go, it's going to take forever to stop it. If they're all in position, if they're all communicating via, I don't know, CB radios or, whatever, that's, it's going to be hard to.
Would also, let's say for the sake of argument, I mean, you couldn't make it work this time of year, but sometime in the spring, if somebody could organise, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen after November the 1st. Perhaps it'll be one of these stealth things. They'll let things drop in bit by bit, Then one day somewhere in the country we'll see European police car patrolling the streets, and then we'll get used to that for a few months, and then we'll see 2 or 3 European police cars patrolling the streets until we get used to it, because you know what they're like. All I'm saying is that sometime in the future, would they take the notice of, and everybody could partake locally. You don't have to travel too far to do this, but if you could get enough people up and down the country to get interested, if one long line of people, and there was one line of people, and we all possibly had, I don't know, a banner or a similar T-shirt all saying the same thing, and you had one long line of people from one end of the country to the other, all joining hands at a particular moment on a particular day, would they take notice of that? And how many people would it take to get from one end of the country to the other for them to take
I think it had to hit them in the pockets. I mean, I remember when the fuel protests
they don't care about that.
And I was amazed when it was inspirational when the fuel protest happened. I've never seen anything like it in my lifetime. Mass action like that, actually, achieving stuff. It was really, really great, man.
They care about one thing: harvesting your energy, and your energy is turned into what is called pound notes in the United Kingdom, dollar bills here in America, yen in China. That's all they care about. It's money. It's the money that's the reason. We're debt slaves.
Going back to the police, Ken, though, if you think about it, they've already started doing it here. Who's slowly taking over the police? G4S.
Yeah, that's your corporatisation kick coming in.
Yeah.
I have noticed that through the summer there's been like security firms taking over where CPSOs and police once roamed.
Yeah.
And they supposedly think that they've got the same powers. On one of the fracking sites, they used what were they called? Court. They were court officers anyway, independent court officers, and they were used to clear that last site where they built the castle.
How could you have an independent court officer though?
These are you could tell these were all. I mean, there was one big guy there. He was a black guy, and you could tell he was ex-military. He wasn't messing about. When he gave his message, he gave it, and he wanted people to listen to what he was saying. You could tell he was ex-military, and possibly 1 or 2 others. But in the majority, they were all like these burly security doormen. Types.
Yeah, but you know where I'm coming from, don't you?
Yeah, well, yeah. That
If you look around, you're paid by the public purse. and you're not able to render your services out. Yeah, so they're actually breaking the law, even better if they're not employed by the Crown.
Well, that's been shown equal with the police in that last eviction, because the police stood there and witnessed the woman in the house get assaulted by one of their team who was trying to tell her to get the kids out of the house. And in the end, she grabbed her around the throat and assaulted her. And the police stood there and did nothing. And they were just stood there silent all the time while she was saying, look, you watched her assault me and you did nothing. Are you police, or are you working for the corporation? And it was obvious they were all working for the corporation, weren't they?
Yes, seen it.
That's what I mean when I say we've got to chop the head off the snake. It's the corporations, isn't it?
It happened at Bilderberg, Ken, know that. There was a pregnant woman on the floor in what's it, G4S at Bilderberg.
Yeah. Well, I've actually got on one of my videos. You can remember that Barton Moss adventure where they got that she was a red-headed woman.
Yeah.
And they were dragging her face across the gravel, and it was this tactical assault unit.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure it's troubled re-edit. I put that scene in twice in slow motion so that people get it through the rest and put the captions up on it. You know, Barton Moss anti-fracking protectors assaulted by police working for the corporate entities, and name the corporate entities who were working for as well.
You mean like I did with that what?
Yeah, iGas, I think it was up there, isn't it?
Like I did with Walter on Google.
Yeah. Greater Manchester, put in it great. That might have been because I got a copyright strike on that one. And I contested it, but I probably got it for that. Assuming that Greater Manchester Police were acting in the corporate interests of iGas or Quadra, whoever it was.
Well, they were, weren't they?
Well, that was film evidence. If anything was a piece of evidence for a court judge to say that a coppers are working for a corporate identity, that was that woman getting her face dragged through the gravel.
Yeah.
Well, something's going to have to happen soon, because freedoms are being totally, eradicated. People are having they're having the freedoms. The right to protest, the right to speak your mind, the right to say, I don't want this, or a group of people saying we don't want this in our neighborhood. They don't care. They're going to do it, and they're going to use the strong arm. They're going to use the strong arm of the law, right? And it's funny that we're having this conversation because I came across I've heard this quote before, but I came across it again today. A Patrick Henry quote, and he says, "Is life so dear or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of the chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what courage others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death." That's a Patrick Henry quote from here in the United States.
Yeah, I've got a Lord Byron quote, which I can't, for me to actually remember it word for word, but I get the sentiment, and it's that one about the lions. Rise like lions from slumber, who in sleep chains fell upon you like dew. Rise up, for we are the many, and they are the few. So there's a bit in there where it says something about shaking off the chains. Rise up, shake off the chains, for we are the many, and they are the few.
But whichever way it's done, it's got to be done peaceful, because you can't stoop to their level. Their level's violence. That's what they want to do. They want to use violence.
That's what they want you to do as well, isn't it?
Yeah, they want you to be like they are. Violent, to say, look, see, this is why we had to arrest them, because we knew they were going to become violent, that's why we came, and so, so...
You just give me a thought there then. 2 water cannons been delivered. Million mask on November 5th. And they don't turn it violent.
They're being delivered on November the 5th.
No, they've been delivered.
Oh, they've been delivered.
I think they have. Don't get me wrong. Oh, actually, it might be the end of October. Yeah, I'm sure it was the end of August.
Mm. I think it was because I put a mention up there, like something to do about we're looking for volunteers to join Boris's Aqua Panzer Regiment.
There's a group on Facebook. There's a group online that have called it People's Water Cannon, and they got one priced up. I don't know whether they got the money together for it or not.
Crowdsource that fucker.
Who's going to have it though? Who looks after the water cannon? Can I look after the water cannon? Bagsy looking after the water cannon?
You take it in turns, don't you?
Yeah.
Whoever organises it, if there's like 10 of you, you pass it on every day or something.
That's GBH, isn't it, with water cannon?
Got to be, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It's got to be.
How much damage can a water cannon actually do?
Well, you could if you get
smash your head off color.
If you get hit with it hard enough, you could end up getting killed.
That, isn't it?
Yeah, fucking hell, what? It's potentially fatal.
Of course it is, yeah.
Yeah.
The same design as the for putting out the airplanes, airport engines. Similar design to that, but it's got more pressure on it because it's pumping more of a solid than the foam. You know where I'm coming from.
It's for putting what into aeroplanes?
Foam into airplanes. It's built on that similar design.
Right.
Well, there's like a lot of pressure behind it. You think of the Simon snorkel?
That's right. Yeah, they're just going to say if anybody can get their hands on a second-hand Simon snorkel and restore that, you've got your water cannon because that's where they come from, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they use those at airports, so they're all. I bet there's somewhere online. I bet there's a Simon snorkel, somebody out there to restore. So, let's crowdsource a Simon snorkel, man. They've got them on the airports in America as well, James.
Yeah,
those big trucks with the funnels with the.
Yeah, it's a case a plane has to make an emergency landing and tires set on fire or engines set on fire, and they follow it down the runway, and as soon as it comes to a halt, that's it. They start spraying it with foam.
Do you reckon that'd be legal to use one of those on? Yeah, if the bailiffs come round, get the old water jet on them.
Well, it doesn't matter if it's legal or not. You got to remember, people keep using this word legality. It's just them. It's just them. Those people that call themselves politicians, those people that call themselves government, making shit up just to basically make violence moral. Because if you do something that they do, you'll go to jail. If you just walk down the street and you say, "Oh, I'm suspecting you of just robbing something from somebody," and you put somebody in cuffs, and you take him back home hooks, and you put him in your basement that you're in right there, right? You've arrested him, and you're locking him up, right? You decided to police your area, and then let's say you've got a couple of neighbours, one of them says that he's the judge, and you bring another few people in and their jury, and they find him guilty, and they say, yeah, he's got to stay here, and have you got any money on you, fella, because we want £200 off you, and he says no. Well, if that's what we're finding you, okay, well, the judge says you've got to stay here in Huxley's basement for 6 months, whatever, right? And all you do is just throw him a bologna sandwich every now and then and some water, right? Once he gets out and he goes and tells the authorities what you've done, right, even though you may have seen him stealing something or you took the law, as they call it, into your own hands, right, you can't do what they do. And who are they? They're just human beings just like you and I. The only difference is that they wear costumes.
Yeah.
And they call themselves government, right? They call themselves this fiction, government. That's that's the thing.
That's the mental block we've got to get over.
Murdering people in foreign lands by dropping bombs on them and shooting them and firing rockets at them, right? It's all what they call legalized, legal. It's war. It's legal. Realistically, it's murder, right? And they look up Google democide. It's a study a name that's been given to it by some guy at the University of Hawaii. But Google democide. Governments have killed without war 260 million of their own people.
Wow. Well,
Democide, Google democide, and it's okay.
Apartheid was bloody legal, wasn't it?
Well, everything that Hitler did was legal.
Yeah, yeah. What am I looking up? Democide.
Democide, yeah. And you'll find a link there to the University of Hawaii.
Murder by government.
Yeah.
Cool.
Be an interesting topic for you guys to talk about on a hangout one night.
Is this talking like killing off like ethnic people, like sort of the Aborigines and the Indians and the Maoris and that sort of thing?
All kinds of stuff. All kinds of stuff.
It's the same thing, same principle when you think of the Liverpool care pathway system that was used in the NHS and where it was adopted in Stoke, or was it Stafford, and one or two other places, and all of a sudden you find 250, 300,000 people disappear within 10 days on that system. Each one, I'm not saying that they disappeared in 10 days, over a long period of time, 200 to 300,000 people were dispatched within 10 days. It was a system that was set up. First, they stopped feeding them. They stopped the water. They would lose the swallow, and within a few days, if you can't swallow and you can't take it, then you're dead.
When government, this entity, these people that work for the government, murder people, it's okay. And the thing about it is, the majority of people think that it's okay. Well, it was done by government, so whoever they did it to, those people that they did it to, that they killed, right? They must have been doing something wrong. And they cover things up by, like, when innocents die, by saying, well, that's collateral damage, right? That's collateral murder, right? But no, it's not. It's murder. They're murdering people.
James,
and people need to wake up to the fact that...
It happened to my mum, right? Her kidney function was down to 13%, and they didn't know whether she needed dialysis or whatever. And they could manage the 13% by taking a couple of so many pills to help her, sort of way out and what have you. And she was due to go into hospital for a day to have some tests, and it turned out that when we got there, they wanted to keep her in. We had a suspicion that they might, but they said, well, we want to keep her in overnight, right? 10 days later, she was dead.
Yeah.
And within the before the end of the 7th day, I had a phone call from one of the nurses and said, we're a bit worried about your mum. She's lost her swallow. Well, yeah, she would have done, because you weren't giving her anything to drink, you weren't giving her anything to bloody well eat, but you weren't telling me, and I was going every day and spending 3 or 4 hours at her bedside. And I'm thinking, shit, they said, this is not how they said it was going to go. Within 10 days, I'm looking at funeral arrangements, man. And I didn't know at the time, and neither did any of those other 299,999 odd. We didn't know, but we've all, those of us, I suppose, we should start sharing notes and on all those 300,000 of us get together and march on fucking Parliament and say, what have you done to our families?
Marching is not going to solve anything, because you know what? The majority of the time when it's done at the weekend, and they're at home in the big lavish houses by the swimming pool, smoking cigars and drinking whiskey, and they're laughing. But, they're laughing at it, right?
Even when it's done, when somebody's around, they're not taking any notice because they won't put it up on they won't.
Well, and it's not just that; it's not affecting anybody's pockets apart from the people.
So do we?
They're not getting the money from is those that have decided not to work that day to go to the protest. But
you see, there's
a reason. I watched that protest. I was in England, right? I was in England. I'd just come back that week, and I was in England, and I'm like, God, I'm supposed to be going all over, UK to go and Ireland. I got things planned, right, to go on a vacation in England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, right? And I'm like, I'm not going to be able to do this now because, you know, these people have decided to drive down M1 and M4 and M25 and go and stand outside. Then eventually, after I think it was like 4 days or something like that, somebody got the notion after they got enough people on board to then go and stand outside the petrol refineries, and they managed to stop the, you know, tanker drivers. And then I was going into grocery stores and all the basic essentials like milk, eggs, bread, you know, bacon, things like that. The shelves were bare.
Yeah, we have problems around here getting milk.
There was no gas, you know, at the gas stations, and people that normally took cars to work started to get on buses, and you know, I was watching it on the news, you know, and it lasted, I think, for like 2.5 weeks, something like that. And eventually, what they did were they called the organizers of the protest. They called them in, and it stopped. You can go back. You can go back onto the BBC website. It's still there. It's still on there. But the problem is not to elect anybody. If this gets, you know, if you ever start this, that nobody's in charge here, right? If anybody goes, if anybody, you know, if they want to know what this is all about, these people have all got to resign. We don't want them anymore. You know, that's it. When they, you know, when they shut it down, when they've all gone and they've, you know, given their letters of resignation saying that's it, we're done as MPs and House of Lords and whatever, then we'll stop this. But until then, no.
You see, I think what we're looking at is not the UK Independence Party, because the UK Independence Party are further right than the Conservatives.
You got to get your mind. You got to get your mind out of this politics. Forget about politics.
I agree.
This shit, monarchy, democracy, politics. It hasn't worked. They've served a small group of people, and while ever you have somebody as what they call a leader or leaders, they're all on the take. Then who knows better to run your life than you? Exactly. You do. Nobody else does.
Quickest way to start that is by the bankers. Take the bankers out. Then the politicians have nothing to leeway with, and then you get rid of the politicians.
The politicians, you'd have to get rid of the politicians first, because it's the illusion that the majority of people think that these people can do certain things, and it's okay for them to do it because they're government.
The illusion that we're having to suffer at the moment is what I talked about earlier, is the illusion that we're living in a democracy when actually, in fact, it's 180 degrees the opposite. We're living in a dictatorship.
We're living in fascism, that's what it is. This is fascism.
Yeah. And all we've got to do is look at our own cognitive dissonance and say to yourself, it's for me to accept the inevitable and say that, you know, I'm not going to be cognitive dissonant anymore. I'm not going to suffer from Stockholm syndrome and stick my head in the sand.
Yes, you've got to become autonomous and do things through a voluntary, mutual, consensual basis with your neighbours, with people in your community, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what city you live nearby, Ken, but like, let's say you live in
Nottingham.
You live in actual Nottingham itself?
Yeah.
Okay. So why do people over 100 miles away have the right to tell you in your city where you live how to run your life, how much tax you've got to pay? They don't live in your city. No. You know, why should you be sending them 20% VAT, value-added tax, on everything that you buy?
Yeah.
Why can't you pay individuals, you know, individually for things that need to be done?
Absolutely. And if you look at the way, I mean the way things are at the moment, almost everybody's on national minimum wage. It's been a big con that national minimum wage was supposedly brought in, and this is another piece of evidence. It was supposedly brought in to help all those people who were getting ripped off by companies who were paying them £3 an hour.
Yeah, but it don't work, because I tell you what they do.
No, it doesn't work.
I'll tell you what they do with that
Because
when people start protesting and saying that they want they want a £15 minimum wage. Okay, we're going to give you a £15 minimum wage. You know what happens? You get, like in supermarkets, self-service checkouts where you end up scanning your own stuff off the shelf. What needs to stop is the very fact that you have to pay somebody. You have to pay somebody to live on this fucking planet. We're the only species that has to pay somebody when you become a certain age, when you leave school at 16, that you have to pay to live on this planet. And what I mean by that is you have to pay for a roof over your head. You have to pay for food, right? Which you could. I'm not saying that people should give this to you. What I'm saying is that if you want food, you should be able to grow it yourself, or trade your skills with somebody else for the food. But shelter, food, and water are three things that a human being needs in order to survive on this planet.
Or and it's difficult for a lot of people to sort of think through this. Oh, well, what would happen if we have no money syndrome? But I mean, the precedent has been set, and I know it's within this paradigm that we're all trying to get rid of, and it's also a precedent that's been set within your country, James, and that is the fact that to overcome the difficulties of having a barter system, that this, in your case, the greenback dollar, and in our case, the Bradbury pound, was brought in as a tool that basically, because all money is only, when you think about it, it's not there for greed. Money is a form of exchange.
Yeah, it's a medium of exchange.
And precisely, and if money had no interest attached to it and was raised on the value of the country, then therefore it could be returned to a system that we could all use as an intermediary thing, where no greed could be attached to it, and it had no purpose to supply that nastiness and that dark side of the financial system.
Well, it goes back to what I said earlier. Money is basically a transfer of your energy, your time, energy, and talent. That's what you transfer it into. And somebody came up with, this great idea. Oh, what a way to, harvest people's, energy by, first of all, the goldsmiths. They started holding people's golds in their banks and giving them certificates. And rather than people going and getting the gold out of the vault, they started trading the certificates between one another. And the goldsmith had that much gold in his vault that he's like, whoa, you know what? I can start loaning this out to people at interest, because nobody's coming in for the gold. They're all exchanging these the certificates now. Mm-hmm. So then he started loaning the gold out, and before you know it, we're on this central reserve promissory fractional reserve banking gimmick, right? Because people trusted a centralized thing and thought, this is great. This is far easier than, carrying around bags of gold.
Yeah, and if we had a form of exchange that was not attached to greed, and it wasn't attached to anything sort of devious and dirty on the dark side like that, then.
Did you go and look into time? Did you go and look into time banking?
I didn't look into time banking. I've been sort of wrapping my head around the concept of the municipal bank, which is more. I mean, the time banking is a brilliant idea.
The thing with time banking is basically, you can go and work in a hospital, right, helping out. and you get time credits for it, right? They don't have to give you money or anything like that. The other thing is, I mean, I'm all for competing medium exchanges. I don't mean, I think I said this before, I don't mean that one has to win and knock one of the others out. Just the fact that all ideas should be put forward to see which one works.
I looked into Tallinger's Ubuntu that he'd been working on, and because this is only the second time I spoke to you, James. Most of the lads know that my little world is ancient British history, and I've been studying what the ancients got up to in this country. And if you want to look at Tallinger and call it Ubuntu, you can do. But in this country, that Ubuntu way of life was how we lived in what I call
right.
The Cookie Monster.
What I want to get at here, though, is
we're looking at a system where we don't live in a monarchy, because a monarchy is one ruler. We're living in a system where they've twisted the meaning of this word, but we're living in an anarchy, which is many rulers, local people.
No, anarchy. No, that's where they've got people. That's where they've got the mainstream media have got people thinking that's what anarchy is.
It means revolution. They're thinking it means fighting on the street.
Anarchy means there are no rulers. It means that everybody, every individual is autonomous, and there is no authority but in each individual, and you only have authority over yourself. You don't. If you look up the real meaning of anarchy, it means no hierarchy, no monarchy, no government. Basically, it means no rulers. It means that each person, and that's what they've done. That's what they've done. The mainstream media have twisted this word and got people believing that basically what anarchy is, it's turmoil. It's people going and smashing things up, that's why you've got to have government, and that's not what it is. But here's my thing with all these ancient monetary systems and things like that, right? The problem is we're supposed to be learning from history, and it's like people over here, they're stuck in this, mindset. If only we can get back to founding fathers. If only we can get back to just after 1776 when we kicked British out. Well, I'm sorry, you tried that experiment and it failed. And it's same with all the other, monetary systems and things like that. There's a reason that we're in the state that we are right now. Because the systems that people are harping on about, let's try this, go back to this, let's do this, they didn't work, because obviously if they did, we'd still be using them today. So I say that it's time to try something new. Let's build a new system. Let's build something different.
Yeah.
Right. And there is time banking, and I mean there's another one. There's all different ones, different types of mediums of exchanges, and one of them is. One, if you just create stuff and you've got stuff left over, you just leave it outside and somebody can come and pick it up, and you do the same. It's whatever you've got spare. I forget. Oh gosh, I forgot what it's called. But there's lots of different ways of doing things.
But I mean, before you. I mean, I know we've got to think past this lot, but we have actually got to empower people to get rid of this paradigm that they want us to be in. Our job is to educate, empower, and reduce the fear factor, and help people to gain the confidence to stand up to this tyranny that's knocking around.
Dean's put anarchism up on screen right now.
Let's have a look. No, I can't see it.
Says anarchism is a political philosophy that advocates stateless societies, often defined as self-governed voluntary institutions, but that several authors have defined as more specific institutions based on non-hierarchical free associations. Anarchism holds the state to be undesirable, unnecessary, or harmful, while anti-statism is central. Anarchism entails opposing authority or hierarchical organizations in the conduct of human relations, including but not limited to the state system.
Well, all I can tell you is that from my study of the ancients in Britain, and I'm on about the proper ones, not the ones that the academics want you to listen to, the system that ran in Britain is very much the system that you're talking about. I can't say I'm not an authority on what they had as a form of exchange, whether they had money or whether they didn't have money. But what I can tell you that in terms of authority, the authority came from the people, and there were councils, and there were regional councils, and each of those regional councils all eventually
because they were tricked.
Meeting of the main. No, not because they were tricked, because the people who ran the councils weren't there to take the piss out of the people. They were there to make sure that the people's rights were upheld.
It's like religion. It's like religion, isn't it?
No.
Like
all
religion.
I'm saying is, it was such a simple system. No, James, let me finish. It was that kind of system.
Yeah, but it is. It's just a belief system, a religion.
Well, it may have had beliefs wrapped around it, but the way it actually functioned was the king was responsible for his people, and according to what I've derived from what I've read. It's not like it was totally the opposite to what we've got now. We've got public servants who don't serve the public, who take the piss out of the public.
They can't. They never can. How can you? How can? Hold on. Let me ask you a question. How can somebody serve you, right? When they are the only way that they can earn a wage, so-called serving you, is by stealing money from you with the threat of you going to jail. How is that service?
That's what I'm saying. That isn't a service. What I'm saying is that is the illusion that they're giving us, is that they are a democratic system who are serving us, the people of Britain, when in actual fact they're not. They're lying through the teeth on that. They're doing just the opposite.
It's always been that way when somebody's been in charge, whether it's a monarch, whether it's a council, whether it's a collective of elders, right? They want paying in some form, right?
Yeah,
and normally what happens, they end up getting threatened. People end up getting threatened with going to jail if they don't cough up, right? Because this is how the system works.
Well, I was saying this only the other day, right? It's no different to like the Robin Hood tales where the sheriff sends his bloody knights out to get gold.
That's how Britain became after William. Well, before William the Conqueror. All I'm saying is, as far as I'm concerned, my history, if you guys know me, my history of this country only goes up to 562. For 200 years, at least, before 562, there was a system in this country where I'm saying that if there was anything such as a public servant, they actually were public servants. They were doing. They weren't. Well, people know they weren't paid. They were all the same people. They were all the same tribe. No one was in it for the money. They were in it to keep their lifestyle going. And there's evidence of this all over Wales. When you see these hill forts close together in one region,
what year
they can't understand. We're talking about the 6th, the 5th, the 4th, the 3rd, the 2nd.
You've heard of tally sticks, right? You've heard of tally sticks.
They came in with one of the early kings, but under
back to AD 23 to 79. That's when they've actually got these back to. So yes, taxes were collected right from people, and before that, you know what they used to do? It don't make a difference. They're still saying you are going to pay us, right? You're going to pay us, and if you don't, then we're going to kill you.
Past 2, I've got to be up, so I'm ending this broadcast. I'm feeling fine, and then I'm going to go to bed because I have to be up early.
Okay, mate. Yeah. We'll have to.
Thanks everybody in chat room for joining us, and possibly be Friday next one, if not between. Well, thank you very much. Good night.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.